Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, JMails24, Unimento, M, Iron26, Endless, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Bill, More Books, Canna Bear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. Another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Has me skeptical about everything. Maybe I should just back off a little bit. Like when I reheard, like a lot of things I'm not getting because I'm driving. But when I listened back, I did hear some of the things he said. He wasn't boasting about being a killing machine. He was actually regretting it. So I'm going to step back a little bit and hold my tongue, should I say.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I usually do that too. He seemed pretty knowledgeable to me. I like having people in the conversation that have intelligent things to say. AI Overlord, I would point at as a good example of that. I really like his input, and I kind of like that AI, Army guy myself.
I was fine with everything he said after that. It just sounded, when I first heard it, it sounded like he was boasting. When I listened to the whole thing through. So what do Steve and George go at it about?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
What does Steve and George go at it about?
Oh, what does Steve and George go at it about? Normally science and the definitions therein or whatever. But it can range from topics. I think it's interesting myself. Normally people don't stick around for it because it's a lot of shouting, but you know, eat the meat, spit out the bones.
Listen, we all had a misconception of what science is, right? Until I learned it here from Chewy, Nathan. You're thinking everything is science until you realize that it's a message. Nathan came on early today. Must be leaving early today.
Good morning, Steve.
Stevie!
Hey, good morning, you guys. What's going on this morning? How's everybody?
Wonderful as usual. I'm in paradise.
The glorious day on God's flat earth.
Did you get moved, Neil? Y'all done?
Yeah, I'm in Alabama. He's still don't know how he managed it. I'm here, struggling, but it is what it is. Didn't turn out the way I planned it. Tried to plan it in a way when we get here. I still have money, so I could, at least get established. That didn't happen. Hence the GoFundMe. But here now, and it is what it is. Definitely better than being up north, though. I have to admit that.
I'm sorry, Neil. What did you just say?
I said definitely better than being up north. Has anybody had problems with their internet or anything? My whole phone yesterday was shot. My wife was on a phone with Verizon for about not Verizon, T-Mobile for about an hour. Everything because I do that DoorDash and Instacart. We go get orders and drop them off. We get in the house. We were fine. We were getting internet, but as soon as we pulled out, couldn't get anything.
I got a suggestion for you. I don't want to sound like a crabby old man, but call your ISP and bitch about it. Bitch in their ear until they give you free internet, because they will, to get you off the phone.
No. I have internet. I have internet. The problem is when I left the house, I didn't have no service, so I couldn't follow any freaking GPS. I couldn't follow any orders because when you get there, you got to follow. Hey, you pick this up, drop it off here. Just shut down. So I got back to the house, and that's the problem because now you're responsible for that order. It was just a mess yesterday. Today seems all right.
Hey, 10th.
Up then.
Good morning. Good morning, guys. I saw your outer space AI video this morning.
What do you think? We played it in yesterday's show. Weren't you around when I played it?
No, yeah, but I saw it for the first time. So I took a screen capture of the last segment of it, where you have the typing in the middle with the Earth and the vacuum of space between the moon.
Yeah,
it's good. I mean, it's interesting because we know it's what's that?
I was just going to say the first of the 3 videos, actually 4 videos that I made on the AI interaction that I had, I probably won't publish. So the first one, because I told everyone about it in Gender Up, they all went and watched and read what I said back and forth with the AI. Now, the second, third, and fourth videos are longer than the first, which is to say they're 10 and 12 minutes long, because I must have spent a couple of hours, and obviously having edited it down, which took a lot of work, what I've actually ended up with is, for the public, a couple of 1 or 2, or at the most with the text, 5-minute videos. And then for the members, if you want to see the entirety of my couple of hours edited down to, like I say, 4 in total videos, 1 is public, the other 3 I'll just leave as members only, because I just don't anticipate that they do particularly well, on account of the fact that they're just me typing back and forth, with the exception of the 4th one, which I used the sections from the video I'm getting there from today that you're talking about. In other words, it's a 10-minute video with all of the text back and forth, about the sky vacuum and gravity, but with only one or two little sections actually narrated by the robot voice from my iPad. Well, I may publish part 4, but it seems a bit stupid to publish part 4 when 2 and 3 are still members only. So I don't really know what I'll do, but I'll probably just leave the second, third, and fourth all members only.
Yeah, that's not necessary that you do all or part. It's just the way you see it, and that's fine too. Whether someone sees it in the public or not is not the point. The point is that you did it, and we already know the computers are programmed, so garbage in, garbage out. But of course, they got to stay with the rhetoric. And then here it is, they're not staying with the rhetoric, but they are staying with the rhetoric because this is their claim. But every time we bring up this claim, they find a way to dance around it. AI didn't dance around it, or tried to, but couldn't. I mean, it's just a whole overview of it that's key. Is it? Well, let me just tie it to Neil deGrasse Tyson video review yesterday. So he has the opportunity of a lifetime. All he has to show is sphericity of the Earth. That's all he's got to show. But he can't. All he's got to show is this thing called gravity. But he can't. So he drops a mic and thinks that a denser object in the lesser dense medium proves gravity. And there's some magic force, the center of the Earth, pulling that mic down. I mean, they have every opportunity to prove we live on a globe, that we're spinning, that we have gas pressure without containment, that we're in an open system or a closed system, but then that violates them getting out of their with their spaceships, because sometimes it's closed, sometimes it's open for business. I mean, it's a crack up. Once you get over the initial triggering of the normies, you can sit at a bar with a beer with a friend and have a laugh at this.
That man, they have the harder job, though. I kind of feel bad for them now. You say all you got to do is prove a circle Earth. Good luck with that, buddy.
Well, no, they got the easier job. They got consensus science. They've got programming. We've all grew up with it, with the movies. They have it all. They got the wind on their back, so to speak.
Yeah, but things are turning now, Ken. Don't you
Great.
think?
So now, I know I was almost
things are
done.
turning a little bit?
But I know I'm trying to get there. The whole point is no one's ever stood up to the consensus science. No one's ever stood up to the so-called wind at their back. So now we're standing up, and things are turning, as you put it, because people are asking good questions. They're not accepting lousy answers. They're not accepting anything other than measurements. We don't want calculations. And so this is where they're struggling, because they've never had to prove it. And yesterday's show, breaking down Neil deGrasse Tyson's strategy of never debating a flat earther, is because he can't win. And he's projecting. He's afraid.
I agree. As I say, he's got the hard job. Poor guy. Good luck with it.
A bit quiet now.
Proving gravity. Am I?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Would you say that, given that the AI resource has got a pool to gather from that's no different to the people that we experience, I'm going to just say it as a statement. In my opinion, the AI was representative of the archetypical baller, which is to say it was just the same as everybody else I've ever dealt with in chat, but a bit more refined and a bit snappier with the responses. But even saying that, there have been times in various chat feeds where I've been chatting back and forth with somebody and their response is so snappy that it reminded me of the AI. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Well, yeah, they've had, no, you're right. They've had centuries to have the same question with the same answer. They've heard it so many times. It's just like me reading different celestial navigation books. It's like, oh yeah, I saw this in the Bowditch one. Oh, I saw this in this one. So yeah, I mean, excuse me, it's like a panel member saying what you've said or what Huey said or what somebody else has said. You just repeat it. So that's fine. But now you got to back it up. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to back it up.
Am I still coming in low?
Yeah, just fuzzy. It's all right.
No, you're good. No, it's good. Adam wants you to do a different video today, so I haven't put anything up. So I don't have that video. I haven't listened to anything that happened the 2 weeks I was sick. So it's one of those people
Adam
that he
wants us
wants you
to
to
do Mind Shock, which we'd got into for about 5-10 minutes on one of the shows, but we didn't really cover it in completion. So I think he's keen for us to cover Mind Shock again. Mind Shock video is the guy. There was a Mensa member.
Yeah, I think.
I was just going to ask you about.
Yeah, I
that
think that's the
Mindshot
guy.
Is he a flat earther or he's just a guy with a YouTube channel?
Mind Shock. I've got mixed opinions. I don't know is the honest answer, but based on what a few of the commenters have suggested, they suggest he's a flat earther. Adam seemed to intimate that he's a flat earther, so I don't know is the honest answer.
Oh man, I hate the damn flat Earth.
Yeah, I
ones.
think it's.
On Gene?
No, they're just no fun. And that Bev guy or whoever the hell was talking, his voice was hell of annoying and no visuals. I don't know. It made for a shit podcast.
No swearing, please.
Yeah, Gene. Mind your
Oh
tongue.
no, it made for a rubbish podcast.
In your humble
No,
opinion.
wait. Hold on. He did say shit, and Tent did say it too because it's something that cows do.
$15.
Listen, context is everything. Context is everything. When a farmer has to go pick up the droppings or shit of about 80
Fertilizer.
animals every day, you call it what it is. It's not a curse word when it's in the context of that.
You know,
Yeah, you're still
something
gonna get some
in
dirty
Guyana,
looks, though.
my wife's Guyanese, and that was a word they all used. They never considered that a swear word.
Okay, well, the acceptable terminology for TV at least
It
is
only
crap
becomes,
or crappy. Crappy and crap.
yeah, it becomes, again, if I'm with my grandchildren, I say crap. If I'm with fellow aged people, I could say the other one. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's the context and where you're at and how you use it. It's if I call someone that word and put his head after it, shithead, it's like, okay, now that's not nice. That's you're attacking the guy. And what's the reason you're calling him that? I mean, I wouldn't do that.
I used to think rubbish like literally meant it had to be rubber for it to go in that rubberish bin.
That's funny. Yeah. We take things literal sometimes.
I didn't know what toss
I
meant.
remember one time being a foreigner to the. Yeah, well, you're going to love what I'm going to tell you. So, not being adept with the English language, we're at a job site doing construction. And again, I'm a foreigner who's just listening to English. And every now and then you get a word that you hadn't heard because you didn't grow up with it, right? So I'm listening to this channel, and the boss has it on, and I hear that condominiums are helping birth control. The guy said condoms, but I heard condominium. So I just like, what in the world? How in the world does condominium stop birth control? What relationship does condominium have to do with birth control?
That's funny because
we must have laughed at too.
Rocky. That was in Rocky too.
Oh, was it?
Rocky too? Yeah. He the wise guy says, "You want to invest some of that money in condos?" And he says, "No, I never used them." That's funny.
I totally forgot. I totally forgot that scene. But anyway, we laughed so hard because I did it out of innocence. I had no clue. So yeah, you throw rubber in the rubbish.
Hey Nathan. Or,
Yes.
What's something that I don't know if you ever been over here to the U.S. What's something that you noticed about us Americans that you found strange? Maybe was a cultural shock to you, or what's something you noticed about us?
Nothing really. I mean, I've spent loads of time in America, so I don't know. There's nothing that. When I first went, when I was in my 20s, the thing that was a bit of a culture shock was the loudness of children there, the volume level in decibels. Children seem to be considerably louder.
Coming from the sound guy though, so it's kind of.
It's just it seemed to me that it didn't matter if the kids were screaming at each other at 120 decibels. That was deemed normal, and it seemed to be a common practice to not tell the kids to quieten down. You know, you're being too loud. Like, no, they're out in public. There's loads of space. They can scream their heads off. If there's someone 5 feet from them listening to them screaming their heads off, it doesn't matter. Or just conversation, not even screaming their heads off, talking to each other. I remember distinctly in a queue to go and watch the first Monsters Inc. in the States with my brother and his girlfriend at the time. And there's these two kids in the queue, and they're just talking to each other, but they're talking at 120 decibels. It's so loud, like ear-piercingly loud. But that's about it. That's the only thing I can name.
But you're a sound guy, so that shit,
That's
it
still
comes
going
normal
on,
to you.
Nathan.
Yeah, that's true. I spent a good 25 minutes
I'm not-
yesterday
I noticed it.
hunting down a buzz from the fridge. Go on, Ted.
I noticed
So
the
when you
same
look at
things,
the-
Nathan. I have to. No, I'll let Gene finish and then.
Go on,
No,
Dean.
go ahead, Tim. Go on.
One of you.
No, I said what Nathan said. What Nathan said, I experience here. So the kids are loud, and the parents really don't do anything. And I'm shocked myself at times, especially at the grocery store or other places. They're just they're not into manners. I was raised with European manners. We called it that because we came from the Middle East.
I
but,
actually,
the fork and the knife and the napkins, the setting, the way you sat at the table, the way you talked at the table with your parents, at what tone, the loudness. I was raised with that and controlled by behavior by my parents telling me, no, it's not polite to talk loud. We talk soft. And so when you're being taught it, then you grow up that way. But if you're not taught it, there's no volume barrier.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with a YouTube channel of some dude named Paulo. I think he may be Brazilian American or Hispanic. I don't know, but he lives in Tokyo, Japan, and I'm just fascinated with. He follows a everyday laborer, day worker, whatever, a mechanic, a software engineer. He follows them around from the moment they get up, from their domicile, their house or whatever, and just everything about them is so systematic. Like Japan runs. I mean, they use a lot of paperwork for business, which is very strange. We use software, right? But everything about their lives is so interesting to me. The uniformity, the synchronicity of everything they do, and that's just Japan. And you can have that type of control because there's only one type of person there, one culture. But I just find Japan very fascinating. I love watching those videos. So anything in Japan, really.
Yes, it's very, very different. I watched a guy who does legal videos talking about it. He lives there. I've got a limited experience, but he summed it up quite nicely, which is to say that he was describing the subway, and the setting is just a normal commute for everybody to work. Because it's so densely packed, they have to be hyper vigilant about keeping moving, not getting in each other's way, like the ant farm. They're all going in the right direction, they're keeping on track. And in this particular scenario, he's describing somebody who's obviously got mental health problems, and they're not doing that. Yeah? Now, the guy who's doing this is doing it when I say doing it, being mental, inches away from everybody who's on the dots waiting to get onto the subway. In other words, they're all in line, and they're not, unless he physically touches them, they don't move. They just keep queuing. They don't look. They're just, we're going to be getting on with our day. And unless the guy literally brushes up against them where they might literally step out of the way, they just ignore him. He's like he's not even there because they've got to keep it moving. They've got to keep the machine ticking. The cogs aren't going to stop turning just because this guy's being bonkers, right? Now, to a lesser extent, it's a bit like that in a major city here. So a different scenario here in England, but in Manchester, a guy got a major head injury walking under some scaffolding. Some brick comes off and hits him in the head, and he's lying on the floor with his skull smashed open and blood going everywhere. Now, people didn't tend to him. Why? Well, because they're in the middle of a city, and as far as they're concerned, oh, some guy that's got problems that aren't my concern. So, bystander effect. Everyone just walked by. Nobody showed the slightest bit of concern in a similar sort of fashion. Now, it's obviously hyper exaggerated in Japan, but it's like that in almost every major city I've ever been in. So when I only mention this because when you ask what's the difference in the States, well, depends on where you go. If you go to a particularly rural part of the States, it's incredibly different to how it would be in an inner city area. But that's like that here. So from that point of view, there's not much difference. But you can compare your rednecks to your city dwellers, right?
Yes, of course. But it's
Any of
also
you?
because they have a
Any of you from
lack
Georgia?
of,
Any of you from
diversity. Okay,
sorry.
go ahead, Nathan.
I was just asking if anybody here was from Georgia. There's a big trade show in Atlanta.
And then we're talking about
Chocolate
that.
lives there.
Atlanta was a bit of a weird place in the respect that there was more homeless people there than I was expecting, and they're more than willing to harass you at length.
That right now is every city you know. I'm here in the Dallas, Texas area, and oh my God,
I've not been to Texas, although I've got a pretty inside scoop from Patricia because I think she still lives there. But yeah, it sounds like every other city, with the exceptions of places like California, which
Gene is right. It's almost
that's
everywhere
ultra
now.
blue.
ultra what?
I would say that's actually ultra liberal right now. Like cities are super duper liberal, but everyone knows that.
Where are you 10th?
Idaho.
Idaho.
I'm
Okay.
in Idaho. Yeah, that's north of, just below the Canadian border, actually. If you go, well, I'm in southern Idaho, so if I go straight up, I'd be going to hit the Canadian border.
Are you a potato farmer?
No, I went into farming for just a brief period, and when I sold my property, the greenhouses and everything went with it. So I'm not currently on property here. I'm renting at the moment, waiting for house prices to subside and interest rates to do whatever they got to do. So not a good time to buy.
Never is.
You should come down to Texas.
I've been to Georgia. I've been to Georgia many times. I've been to New York. I've been to about like 36 states altogether, something like that. I've either driven through them or stayed a while.
Yeah,
And so there are differences in the different, the South and the North, and but the homeless, like Gene says, they're just everywhere where the weather will help them, meaning mostly in the warmer states. Less and less. I mean, they're here in Idaho. I do see them, but they're rare compared to what I saw in California.
I wouldn't touch California with a 10-foot pole.
California is probably, in my opinion, again, just my opinion, because I've been to the Mediterranean and Italy and coast of France and Spain and
you've been as many places as
different
I have.
countries.
Bloody hell.
The weather, the weather in California, the living in California is unbeatable. The politics, run for your life. Run for your life. I had to leave it finally. I couldn't take it
I
anymore.
just saw
But to have the ocean
Colorado.
an hour and 10.
Go ahead.
Hmm?
Oh, I was just gonna say
No, I was going to say they have the
Colorado.
beautiful Pacific Ocean. Okay, go ahead. You go
ahead, G.
first.
No, you go, G. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I just saw a few things, just two things from blue states, as we call them, very liberal places. California, they just took away, if your engine is, I think, older than 2017, your car engine, that your vehicle is like banned from, commuting. And also in Colorado, they only want cage-free eggs now.
What? Are you serious?
Yes, you can
No,
look up both of those articles.
They passed the rule. They passed the rule that by 2030 something, all diesel engines for trucks carrying anything across, for trade and food or whatever, are going to be banned. It has to be something different, electric. I mean, it's a nonsense thing. It's not going to be enforceable. The state will starve. I mean, you've got most trucks, 80%, if not more, are all diesel that move commerce. So they're going to either have to build railroads and more railways, which run diesel, by the way. So anyway, back to California. To have the mountains where you can go ski, the desert that you can go to, like, say, Palm Desert, Palm Springs, the ocean, all within an hour and a half of each other, and the weather, 330 days basically of pure sunshine, great weather. It was a great place to live all those years. But the politics, you got to run. It's there. That state's going to implode.
I just want to go over there to Britain somewhere. Not, well, I don't know what the fuck Britain is, London, or I don't know. I don't understand that. I'm a dumb American. But I just want to go over there and just hear how people talk. I just like doing that. And probably just giggle at them.
Okay.
See a little kid, the lorry.
A lot of
just laugh.
Brits.
I was often not understood when I was in the States. Speaking with an English accent, people wouldn't understand you, which I found that was surprising. That they couldn't understand what I was saying without having an American accent. But if I was Scottish or Irish, fine, or even Welsh to a certain degree, because Welsh isn't quite as thick as Irish or Scottish especially. But, if Brian was over there and he was like, yeah, people couldn't understand me, I'd be like, yeah, I can't understand you. You know what I mean? I can, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So there's like five territories, right, to make up Great Britain. It's like Wales, Britain, I guess. What's the other ones? I forgot. Scotland, Ireland. What is, like, little British
That's
colonies
it.
or something?
You've got
like
them
that?
all.
No, the major one, England, of course.
You've got England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, but you've also got Ireland being split up into two. So you've got the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland.
Oh, and they fight over each other? They fight for no reason?
No, not exactly. So do we really want to go over the Irish problem?
I don't know, dude. I'm a foreigner. To me, you're all the same.
Northern Ireland
whatever.
is technically owned by England, if you want to look at it in the most simplistic terms. And there are 50% of the people in Northern Ireland that are quite happy with that, and the other half that absolutely are not. Okay, well, that cleared that up.
All right.
But that's just Northern Ireland. So, if you were to mention the Troubles to someone like Brian, he'd just laugh because he's from mainland Ireland. He probably couldn't give a toss. It's a very, very small part of Ireland. Now, don't get me wrong. When you go there, it's intense because the place has all been broken apart, like internally broken apart and rebuilt. So it's all very stark and grey and semi-new, and there's a bitter taste in everybody who's there. They're just a little bit bitter, especially if you turn up and you're English. As soon as they hear your accent, they're not at all happy with you. So
they're racist over there.
But that's also true in Scotland. There's some very patriarchal Scottish people that have took offence to me just being there, as much as in Northern Ireland. If more,
Really?
it's not. I was going to say more, but it's only because I spent more time in Scotland and it's a bigger place.
No, it's worse in
And you
Scotland.
guys are all white.
I would say it was. I was going to
You're
say
all
that,
white.
Adam. I was going to say it was worse in Scotland, but I didn't want to because
Yeah.
it just seemed wrong, given that I spent more time there and it was there's more people to pick from. But I would say that to you. I'd say it was worse.
Places
Northern
like
Ireland.
Glasgow, definitely. I was told I went in the tenants bar, just be quiet. The only other place I've ever had that, and that was like 5 years ago. The only other place I've had that was nearly 30 in the north when I went over with my mate there, who's Protestant, and he's taking me around all the bars. He's saying, just keep you, because I got a big mouth. Just keep it down, Ad, because as soon as they hear that, they're going to think there's a squaddy in the pub. So much more. But then you go to the south, not an issue. I'm down in Waterford on my own, waiting for my wife to turn up, trying tell him to turn that rubbish off and put the England game on in a pub. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't dare to do that in the north. But like you said, it's not really relevant in the south.
So you guys distinguish each other by tone, voice, because it's all the same
it's
language.
territorial. We're talking at the tip of the north of the country, or the island, if you like.
No, but how do you guys differentiate each other?
Accent, same as you would.
But to us from outsiders looking in, I'm like, man, they're all white. They're all the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. There are multi-ethnic parts of the UK, though. So there's as many
What do you mean by white?
Muslims and Sikhs and black people.
Pasty whites.
But yes, for the most part, that's true.
That's the lack of sun that makes us pasty. That's not our fault.
It gets worse the further north you go, the more pasty you are.
we'll step outside. Shit.
It's nothing to do
Adam,
with stepping
you had to
outside. You can be outside as much as you like in the dingy weather here. You're not going to get a suntan, I assure you.
So Adam, you had.
Go on, Neil. You can do it.
Go on.
Go on,
You're
my
not
son.
hearing me. That's.
No, you're back.
I said you had to be quiet when you were in a certain pub because they would recognize your accent.
Yeah. In a Scottish
Wow.
Scottish bars
They've
I've
got
been
the-
in, you keep your mouth
They've
shut.
got the one, Nate, haven't they, where they drive an old knackered car and they paint an England flag on it and stick it in somewhere in Glasgow and come back a few hours later to see it absolutely have the shit kicked out of it.
You
That's
can
like
do the
out-
same here with a
Go on.
with a Philadelphia Eagles logo. If you have that, just that team alone will get your car scratched or kicked. Any other team is fine, just not the Philadelphia Eagles.
That
I
annoys
agree
me.
with
That
that.
that
Gene's
annoys
right.
me. Territorial aggression, you can understand, right? There's a reason for it. There's history. In other words, when you actually ask them, which I did with one of the dealers, I was like, take me through the history. I want to know what the animosity's for. And he did. He took me through it. I was like, okay, that gives me a better appreciation of why people are a bit hostile. Okay, fine. That
Now
makes
that
sense.
being said, though,
I'm nearly there.
that being
Hold on.
said, oh,
So territorially, I can understand that. But as for random football team, Coventry fan not liking a Birmingham fan, just stupid nonsense. It's just
No, it's
meaningless nonsense.
No, it's not. We hate Derby. Don't ask me why I hate Derby, but we hate Derby.
Meaningless nonsense.
Yeah, completely. But it's
It's
good
for the purely brain dead to engage them in the is it the Hegelian dialectic? Is that what it is? Am I got the terms wrong?
I think that's about right, isn't it?
I know you're not talking into your mic.
Sorry, that's about right, isn't it? It's kind of a Hegelian dialect in a way.
Oh, did you see my clip? We were talking about RSE, the Christian guy who's basically a conspiracy theorist. I love getting a bit of escapism from YouTube and going to conspiracy theories. And this guy is Christian, but he likes pulling apart subliminal messages in adverts. Awesome, right up my street. Anyway, RSE is the name of the YouTuber, and he released a video yesterday, and he was like, check out Greta Thunberg in her Save the Children appeal advert, and look at all of these subliminal messages. Halfway through the video, I'm like, oh my god, she's burning a globe! What the hell? So I trimmed that out. I was like, yeah, I'll definitely publish that on my channel. Greta Thunberg, if I could say it. Thunberg.
Nathan, I wanted to ask you.
Go on.
I see you have some old videos of Freemasons and flat earther. What all became of that? Like, what any truth? What can you give me a short little summary of what the Freemasons had anything to do with flat earth? Or
What do you mean?
I saw you have like old podcasts like 3 or 4 years ago with you. I think chatting with other people. I think it's called Flat Earthers are Freemasons or something like that.
I can't remember. I'd have to go back and have a look.
We did a
But
interview with a 32nd degree Mason, Chad Swanson, in America. And he wanted to come on to Earth to say what the Masons know. So he's obviously pointing out it fundamentally to him, it's a Christian organization, but pointing out that within the Masonic teachings, the Boas, the grids, all these things, and particularly the square and compass, demonstrate that the Masons thought of it as flat as well.
There's a few other things, checkerboard floors as well. There's a few other things, checkerboard floors. It's not just the square and compass.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. The square floor.
Oh, did you say that? Sorry.
Which is perspective as well. In that
Indeed.
as well. That's why
the checkerboard floors is what?
It's a demonstration of perspective. It's a really good way of showing you how the world is represented. If you imagine a diagrammatical example of perspective, that's what you get if you just stand and look at the checkerboard floor that they have in every Masonic lodge. They also incorporate it with perspective drawn perfectly into their, what do they call them? The plates, the plaques, they're like giant cards, like A1 size cards that they have these like pictures on. Like some of them have got a checkerboard floor moving towards a throne with 2 pillars either side with the sun and the moon on the top of the pillars. Things like that.
And it's for that reason? It's for like trying to show the viewer perspective or something like that?
No, it's because Masonry is communicating its message not through language but through signs and symbols. And it's an esoteric way of communicating. A better person to actually disseminate this is probably Russian Vids. He knows more about it than anybody because he's good at seeing the signs and symbols. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily fully agree with his gematria analysis of various different things, but it is correct when you analyse it alongside the standards of Freemasonry. So you can't knock him in that regard, regardless of whether or not I like it. It doesn't matter, it's not important. But what is important is the Masonic connection to Flat Earth through these things that show how the world actually works. They're Masons. So what are they disseminating? How the world is built upon, how we build. Yeah, that's what they're doing. Now, in terms of just one more thing, the only thing that I ever got from a Freemason, Chris Monk was a Freemason that sort of interjected himself into our little group while we were talking about the Earth curve calculator, and then swiftly removed himself not long after. But he gave me a little story which I thought was interesting. May or may not be true, but he was talking specifically about, having been asked, flat Earth within Masonry, as you'd obviously imagine I'd be curious about, and I was. And I said, well, did you ever get taught any of it or told any of it? And he said, the only hint that I ever got was from the lodge master when we were just sat and having a conversation about something, and I mentioned something in the paper or a piece of news that was occurring globally. And the lodge master chuckled, and they went, global, yeah, if you believe that. And that was about as much information as he ever got out of the Masons in regards to it. Now, he said I never heard him refer to things like that. It was always super serious, this particular lodge master or whatever he was called. And because of the way he chuckled about it, it intimated to Chris that it's something you might want to look into, right? That was his explanation to me about how flat Earth might come up through Masonry or whatever, the Shiners, or whatever other subset of this particular group. Now, a lot of people just lay blame at the Masons for the heliocentric deception, and I don't know if that's necessarily warranted. I don't know. What do you think, Adam?
I would not necessarily. They do teach it. So if you listen some of it. Some now, if you look at the pillars, they'll have one of a celestial sphere and one of a globe. That wasn't the case in the past. I think that knowledge is now reserved for the higher orders, or for you to figure it out. It's there. As I say, in all the symbology pictures that they give you, that information is there for you to decode. That's the point of them. That's your homework when you're a Mason. Here's this picture. Come back when you've worked it out through symbology, gematria, and also scripture as well. Whether they believe in Christ as a Mason, which isn't necessary, just to believe in a creator, to be a Mason, but they still place value in the messages in the scripture to work this out as well. A lot of it being anti-Christian, I think in some ways, because it would deny Judaism in the way it is anti-Christian.
What I will tell you I learned is there's a lot of demonization of Freemasonry, which is unwarranted. And the more I learned, the more I thought, why is it that this globe lie is somehow peddled as being the Freemasons' fault? It didn't make any sense to me the more I looked into it. Now, it doesn't get discussed much on the show because I don't think it's relevant. People might disagree, and they can show the symbology and how it's connected and how people in the Freemasons will communicate various other deceptions and events that may take place through their signs and symbols. And yeah, that might have credence. I don't know. It's just, to me, not necessarily that relevant to the subject we cover.
The bit I'd add, just to top it off, is a little tip we received from an anonymous Mason saying, you do understand the purpose of the square and compass is proof of a flat earth. The square for the land and the compass to measure the sky.
Right. Exactly. That was that's why it was the first thing Adam and I both mentioned. That's the only real relevancy, is that you could say, well, they're hiding the secret of the earth. It's like, no, they're keeping the reality alive for their members. But does that mean that they're somehow guilty of doing something wrong when they keep the information about the obvious and observable flat nature of the world that they're, doing their masonry with? Does that not make perfect sense? But does it make them in any way culpable or guilty? I say no. Just because they're keeping the secret hidden, that isn't necessarily the way you should phrase it. They're keeping that information available to the people who are Freemasons. So they've got lots of secret knowledge. That's probably why they come under ridicule. Anybody with information that you're like, well, I want to be knowing that. Go on.
Also, if I wanted to say, I just want to say too, what about the political figures, the prominence of it, within high-ranking, members of society?
That's where it's relevant. But I don't have a horse in that race. But yes, that's where it's relevant. That's what, go to Russian vids.
Is Neil deGrasse Tyson a Freemason?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
They all are.
That's interesting. Because like I said, to become a Mason, you do have to accept a creator.
Can I get an amen?
Exactly. But would deGrasse Tyson say that the ontological primitive?
Adam, I just heard a video where he was saying, he was criticizing that God cannot be almighty or all-powerful because he's looking to things that happen in the world. So he actually denies the creator. I don't know about that.
Then he shouldn't be a Mason. I'm saying that's contradictory. You don't have to say, I think you have to accept a creator. What the role of that is, I don't know, but I think that's the fundamental get out clause, that you accept that there is a creator, not Big Bang, random.
Nathan?
We'll be getting a coffee before setup. Go on, dude.
Speak.
Oh, I was just asking if Nathan could clarify a statement he just used again, that he doesn't have a horse in the race. I'm just wondering if you would expand on it as for clarification, because it was used before in the context of when the Bible or God was being discussed, and now in a political sense with the Freemasons and their power in political settings.
I don't think he's there, but I would probably agree with him. I think when I'm relating this sort of stuff to their hidden knowledge, very separate to control mechanisms, which is where I think we are correct in accusing Masonic orders of bad things, sort of cabal type activities, government control, those sorts of things. As Nathan says, that this kind of sits outside of that. Maybe the aspersion cast on the same party. I don't see how the two are directly linked. Of course, intrinsically hiding knowledge, but this knowledge isn't hidden. It's there. It's accessible to you if you want to go and ask for it. It's there. You can go and become a Mason. You can go and study this. You can go and be taught it. It's not hidden from you. It's just hidden from the masses until you join a lodge, and then it's available to you. So
Well,
I don't think the latter kind of joining elite controlling groups is necessarily open to you. You may have to go through the Masons to get there, but I don't think necessarily that they're intrinsically the same. You know?
No, I was just wondering. Sorry, I was just wondering if that statement was equivalent to I don't want to be a part of that discussion because it's not that important in my life or to me or to this program. When
I
you
think
said,
I
Not
think
that it's
that's
not
100%
important,
what it
is it? It's that you can't affect it in any way, shape, or form. So
Exactly.
that's why he's not in that race, because it is, yeah, it's a different race that we can't compete in. What's the point?
Yeah. Oh, I just want to say there's a local lodge close nearby, and it's a big, great building. And I always look at the architecture, and it has owls and little places and little G's everywhere. And I pass by just to always give it a look, and it's always very interesting to me.
oh, yeah, but yeah, I just, because when he used the term before that he doesn't have a horse in the race, I took it to mean that personally he wouldn't want to get involved in that discussion because it's really like, say, for a Christian, or in this case here, as a person who was a Freemason, his Freemasonry is very important to him. Just like a Christian, his Bible and everything around Christianity is important. So if something touches that subject, he will either defend it or oppose it if he feels it's infringing on what he believes. So I was just curious if it's just when Nathan uses it, he just doesn't want to discuss it as as an involved person.
Are you asking me? So I disappeared for 2 seconds.
Yes.
What's your question? Do
Just
I not want to discuss
clarify
things because of the only reason is because it's not the subject of the show. That's it.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's how we will understand then your statement. I don't know horse in the race.
Well, I'll hold my tongue
children.
on various subjects that I have a very strong opinion on, because it's just not the subject of the show. So it's a certain amount of discipline on my part. Yeah, it's really easy to disseminate your personal views if you've got a platform to do it from, but I don't want to abuse the whys and wherefores and reasonings behind people's subscription here. I've laid out what we do and people have subscribed. If I suddenly use it as a reason to punt my own belief or disseminate my opinion on something that's unrelated, I just think that's an abuse of the platform I've built. That's just my personal opinion.
It's not the standards. Well, if you're presenting information here, and if they were this is the point with regard to that topic. Where's the evidence? Where's the proof? If a picture A painting of George Bush sitting down playing with a paper airplane and Lego bricks, 2 towers collapsing, Epstein's private painting collection is not evidence. It's just hearsay and conjecture, and that's not the standards to disseminate data. You can go and read that same hearsay and stories yourself, can't you? I don't need to support them or put them out there because I can't add any validity to it. It's just another opinion. And
We're still talking about the Freemasons.
well,
I
talking
think I
about not just the
understand.
Freemasons. It was about, he was saying related in terms of cabal, so outside of hidden knowledge, in terms of control of the state and stuff. And that's why
Oh, no. I
stay out
just
of
wanted
that,
to get
'cause I don't know.
Nathan's, sorry. I wanted to get what Nathan wanted to relay to us when he uses that term. I don't have a horse in this race. That's
Oh,
all.
okay.
And I think he clarified it. Thank you.
Means I don't have a reason to want to fight either side of the battle. So when it comes to things like Christianity, I'm indifferent.
Yeah.
It's not like I've got a vested interest in decrying it or a vested interest in affirming it. So that's where I say I haven't got a horse in this race.
It's like me with
Thanks. I
baseball.
got it now.
If the Phillies are playing the Marlins, I don't have a horse in the race. That means I don't care who wins. Same thing.
Thank you.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by 10th Man Rising, the Adam Meakin, Neil Constantino, Eli Freeman, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Wow, full name
Hello,
today.
good morning.
Say good afternoon.
Yeah, full name today, why not? Just showing off that I can say it. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth.
Well, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, he has the objective truth on this, but he can't show it.
You can't show it because it's not globe-shaped. We don't have Earth curve. The horizon was debunked as Earth curve in 2020. That's 3 years ago. Any evidence of the R value? Earth radius.
But he'll go on. Well,
Go on,
everybody knows we live on the globe. The science is settled. I have the objective truth. There's no way I even need to answer this question according to Neil deGrasse Tyson. R value.
Any scientific evidence of gravity? Hey, Sleeping Warrior. Hey, Arwin.
Yeah, Neil dropped the mic, and it hit the floor. There's gravity. There you go.
Don't forget he took off his coat.
I released a helium balloon and it hit the ceiling. So, did I prove anti-gravity?
You're more charismatic. He will never debate you.
I'm more
So that's
charismatic.
just buoyancy, Neil.
I don't think he was talking about me personally.
You know what, Nathan? I was listening to the show from yesterday, and you know that clip that was played of Neil deGrasse Tyson's, and he was describing how sometimes the eloquent or the well-spoken or the guy with the most amount of poise to his vernacular often wins the argument, and that was his authority for not discussing things with flat earthers. And then he went on to then say, "I have the objective truth." The question that I want to ask is, have you ever heard anybody on our side of the topic be described as either eloquent or well-spoken or charismatic or any of the positive words that he used to describe why it is that winning the argument, winning the argument in that way is not desirable? Because all I ever get told is you're a moron.
I've got you. What you're asking is the general consensus opinion of flat earthers, as described by Neil deGrasse Tyson, as eloquent, well-spoken, well-educated, capable of winning debates, or is the general consensus opinion of flat earthers that we are brain dead?
Yeah, exactly. So how valid is his statement when he says about how eloquent the arguments may be? Obviously, it doesn't apply. I wonder why he would even say that. I was sat listening to when he was saying that. I was listening to the show, and I was making food at the time, and I sat there like daydreaming into my food, thinking, yeah, that is the argument. That all the arguments that we bring to the table, they're all like that, aren't they? But we don't get described that way, do we?
No, not at all. So what you're saying is, even by the reasonable standard of a guy who stood back and listened to him and then went, hang on. So you're saying that you won't debate flat earthers because of how eloquent and well received they all are, to the point where people might just accept what they say? Oh yeah, that's a real problem that we have.
Yeah, it's called being conflicted, because like he has to describe it that way to give some credibility to why he wouldn't talk to people like us. Yet when you actually listen to how we get spoken to by these morons, you realize it couldn't be further from the truth. So the validity of his statement is zero. Like, it has no applicability whatsoever. So what is the reason then, Neil? Because obviously that one doesn't apply.
Well, it's encompassed in the last question about having an R value and the next question about distance to the sun. So any evidence of the distance to the sun, given that's his specialist field?
No.
Other than the object
not without the R value, but back to sleeping.
Go on 10th then, Adam.
But to address sleeping, Sleeping Warrior brought up a good point here. It's like the current reigning World Cup champions, Argentina soccer team, asked to play the kids team of 12-year-olds, and doing the same thing to them is what Neil deGrasse is doing. So basically, the flat earthers is the kids team, 12-year-olds, and Neil deGrasse Tyson is the world champ, Argentinian World Cup team winner, who just went through a grueling tournament. And no. I might lose to them because they're eloquent. What? It's about your skill. You're the world champs. Come on, let's see you beat these guys. No. We can't do that because one of them might be more charismatic.
I don't like that illustration. The 12-year-old team could never beat the Argentine team.
Well, that's the way they want to portray us, as stupid, dimwits, whatever names we've been called. And then when it says time to debate the points objectively, they used that point to say no, because they might have better wordsmith capabilities. Oh, a 12-year-old's going to have better dribbling, better technique than the world champs? Is that what you're saying?
Do you know what I reckon had happened though? If the Argentine first team football team actually played, instead of playing kids, if they played the English Lionesses, they'd probably get beat by the girls, because the girls' English team is much better than the men's English team. And then the prep talk that would be happening for the men's team in the World Cup would be given by the women's football team, rather than the other way around, that have never won anything yet. They were giving the women a prep talk, which I found
what a load of woke nonsense.
Go on,
what?
The women's football team, they get caned by the under-15s boys team. They're absolutely.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, before we move on, there's one
English...
other thing which should speak to Anthony's point, which is to say, and I can weave in my apology to QE yesterday because he took this completely wrong way, which is in the same vein, Anthony. If this charismatic, well-spoken, well-received flat earther was to debate Neil deGrasse Tyson, the comments underneath, if he had his arguments, that's Neil deGrasse Tyson's arguments, taken to pieces in the most literal sense by the flat earther, and he was more charismatic and well-received, right? Underneath that video in the comment section, there'd be people saying, "See how well Neil deGrasse Tyson hammered the flat earther," right? Now,
Yeah,
I've given that
course.
example there because I tried to give the same example with it being quantum eraser rather than whoever was in my example a moment ago, which is to say that it doesn't matter how well someone like Quantum Eraser does. I picked him because he's the best debater I know. If he hammers the guy, hands the guy's ass, the commenters beneath will still say, "See how badly QE lost," with no example given of how and where and timestamped.
And the other way to view that same scenario is if Neil deGrasse Tyson is getting cornered and QE's attacking and he's trading blows and they're all going to the face and it's a matter of moments before the guy hits the canvas, right? When he's in attack mode and he's on point and he's not calling him names and he's literally saying you can't violate the second law of thermodynamics practically, if that's the example, right? All that would happen in the comments section would be, "Isn't quantum eraser rude and violent? Neil deGrasse Tyson's holding his nerve against this moron," and they're ignoring the point that's being made in lieu of addressing the character of the person instead.
Exactly.
All the time. It drives me nuts.
Exactly. So they'll claim the victory where there isn't one.
Exactly.
So there's people like Fight the Flat Earth who came and commented on my AI video saying, "Look, Nathan lost to the AI." I'm like, timestamp where I lost. You know, an unsubstantiated claim to make yourself feel better in the comments section.
Yep. It'd be interesting to see whether he actually understood the artificial intelligence, because to claim that you lost while showing the contradiction in terms and how the video, the computer was responding back to you and saying things like, "I'm sorry you didn't understand. Perhaps I wasn't clear," or whatever use of language it was. Because I could see what was going on there. It was almost as if that AI was written by Rumpus himself. It was like literally Rumpus's voice saying it in the background in my head.
No. I don't think it's that. The resource material that the AI has is the same as the resource material that I have when I go and check what I'm up against. Right? So if I'm going to find out what is a claim that's being made to me by a globe believer, you just do what they do. When we call them wiki parroting pretender clowns, be that wiki parroting pretender clown to find out where they've gone to get to that point. And you very quickly find that the contradictory doublespeak, just type in Coriolis effect, type in Coriolis force into Google, a search engine, or any search engine, and then go to the first couple of results that have been picked to be first because they're contradicting themselves with weather patterns. Or in Wiki, where it's describing reference frames that aren't non-inertial and inertial, but actually giving you actual deflections. You know, it's a contradictory doublespeak that's presented to you that has been refined, and that's the resource that the AI has. The only difference between you and your comparison with Rumpus is that the AI can do it much quicker. But as far as I could tell, it was no different to dealing with anybody in the chat. I'm not suggesting the people are chatbots. I'm saying that they've got the same resources, and they often do a worse job than the AI. It's just much more refined, the AI is, and quick. It can rattle off that double-speak contradiction to the point where I can highlight it in a video nice and concisely, quickly, without rumpusing me or obfuscating the point, saying, "I apologise for my contradictory doublespeak that I just put forth. The reason for the doublespeak is because this bit contradicts that bit. Now let me reiterate the two bits that aren't in conformity with one another again." That's what it did. Very useful for me. But if you read that as a globe believer and go, "Oh, Nathan got lost." No, I got all the rhetoric that we've had for the last 5 years parroted off to me in the quickest, most concise way it could be, along with the contradictions and doublespeak that I can highlight alongside it. Just all it was is concise. Actually, I'm going to ask the chat something. Sorry to waffle on, guys in the panel. We will do the rest of the housekeeping questions in a moment. I want to know from the chat, right? Type 1 into the chat if you would be interested in me releasing the currently members-only videos that are literally just an edited version of me typing to AI and the responses I got in full. In other words, they're edited, but all of the back and forth is there. It's just not endless bits of me typing slowly on an iPad keyboard. Now, I think that they'll be dull. As videos, they are dull. It's just reading what I've typed. as I type it, and it responds. Now, the videos that have gone out, there's another one that I released this morning, which is AI knows space is fake. Do you? That's the title of the video. Now, that was after about 2 hours of conversation and about a day of editing down to these 4 videos that are members only. One is yet to be released even to the members. Part 4 will be tomorrow, by the way, if you remember. I want to know from the chat, type 1 if you would be interested in reading those scrolled up chats with a bit of music behind them. Or type 2 if no, actually what you've put out so far makes the point. You've hacked it down from a couple of hours to 2 or 3 minute videos, 2 of them, and that's enough. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So 1 if you're
It's all
interested.
1 so far, except for Sensual Goat, who types 3.
No,
That's
people
the
type in
same
1
for
and
me.
members as well, which is interesting because they've already seen part 1 and 2 and 3. Is it up to 3? I think we're up to 3.
Nathan, it's a 2 for me. I don't think you need to do the longer version of it. But what you were saying about Coriolis force and Coriolis effect when you do those searches and find out it's all doublespeak, unless you know it's doublespeak, you don't realize it. But now that we all know that, the exact same thing happens with gravity. You can search for gravity on the surface and find that it's a force, and then dig below that and you realize that it's not a force. And then when you dig below that, it's not the bending of a conceptual space-time either, even though that is the current position. You realize that it's all doublespeak and nonsense. And what it is they've got to overcomplicate the topic, because the simple fact is that it is the medium that governs the direction and the rate, and you can calculate it if you really want to, but you can demonstrate it real world. But until you know that there's a contradiction or there's a doublespeak or there's an application of sophistry, you don't realize it's sophistry until you're told. Well, now you are told it, and you can listen to it and view it and research it all by doing what you just said, going onto Google, typing in Coriolis force, and then going onto Google, typing in gravity, and all of their main topics are all doublespeak, like obfuscation tactics. But until you know it, you're just going to accept it on face value because, well, it's the argument ad populum, isn't it? It's like the one that everybody thinks is true, therefore it is true. Well, now you know it's not, and then you realize, and then you see it everywhere. You can't unsee it anymore.
Well, you and I can speak to this more than most because we've got our specialist subjects, i.e. Anthony and myself. I know everybody else is good at this stuff. I'm not decrying anybody here, right? I'm just saying, just as it's us two in this discussion. Anthony specifically focuses on gravity. He's very good at it. He knows the ins and outs of it. He could probably recite Kepler's third law to you. I couldn't do that. I understand the general idea of how to debunk it and what it isn't. That's enough to get by. But Anthony can really get down to the minutiae of what gravity is and isn't. I can't do that. But by vice versa, I can do it with Coriolis effect. Not that I like it particularly. But that's sort of more of my specialist subject. Now, when you do as Anthony's described, as I suggested you do as the audience, and just go out and type in things like Coriolis, he's absolutely right. You don't know what you don't know. Now, when I first looked at Coriolis 7 years ago, I was like, this is just too complicated to understand. You know, I didn't get it. And I've even got still published a video that debunks it incorrectly by trying to take apart how the Foucault pendulum is on a gimbal or whatever they call it, the pivot mechanism. And that's what I'm trying to attack. And you're like, crap. Don't understand the Coriolis effect, Nathan, from the past. Right? But neither does most people. And as Anthony points out, when you go and read the contradictory doublespeak, cognitively, it doesn't make sense. But because you don't understand it, you don't know why it doesn't make sense. A resounding and unanimous 11111 for everybody wants me to publish the back and forth between me and AI. So I will do that. So what I'm going to do, I'll set it up now. Hopefully you guys will chat amongst yourselves about something. I'll put out a housekeeping question so that the conversation doesn't die on his ass. But what I'll do is I'm nearly there. I'll put out the part 2. So I've already put out part 1 to the public a couple of days ago, and part 2 has already been out to the members. 36 people have watched it already, so I'm going to release that after this live show. So in 3/4 of an hour from now, I'll set it to premiere, and then I'll spam a link in the end of the live show, and I'll see how it does. If you're all right in the live chat and everybody goes and comments and are really excited by the fact that there's typing going on screen, then maybe I'll release the 3rd and 4th one. But as it stands, I will, as you've all said, 1, even Godzilla super chatted 1. I will release that at the end of this show, so the public will get to see my back and forth discussion on the Sky Vacuum. So the video is called FE versus OpenAI Part 2, the Sky Vacuum. And it's got a picture of iRobot in the thumbnail, so go and check that out. As I say, I will spam the link. Should I put out another housekeeping question, or did Darwin want to pop something in enough to fill 2 or 3 minutes while I get this set to schedule.
I want to
What?
respond to Tony.
Tony, go ahead.
So you poo-pooed him when he said rumpus. Well, that was the same thing that I caught, Tony, down to yesterday, the AI giving the exact same rumpus contradiction, which was that the second law doesn't apply to the earth. They are the most condensed and concise and point out their contradictions in a clean and politeful manner, anti-flat earther I've ever known. And they what's the phrase? They have superseded the real anti-flat earthers, I think, because they're a lot easier to deal with, the AI, and we get the same answer in a much more concise manner.
Yeah, there's no rumpusing.
They programmed
There's
it
no
based on
obfuscation. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying they programmed it not based on rumpus. They programmed it based on me. Maybe.
Well, yeah, I would say
Yeah.
you're the closest because you're as good as it gets. I'm not trying to butter your ego, but Arwin is very good at concisely disseminating the actual faults and contradictions within the globe rhetoric when he puts it across as devil's advocate. Likewise with the AI. It, in one sentence, said, yes, of course you can have gas pressure without a container. And then in the next sentence, gas pressure is the force exerted on the walls of the container. That was in one line from the AI.
Yeah.
So it's more than happy to concisely
But I
contradict
like
itself.
how he stayed polite about it, right? That's like where I'm like, oh, I like this AI. It's more like, how I would do it.
It's like the customer services complaint person when you make the complaint about something that you're not happy with, and they always say that one line initially, which is, I'm very sorry for our content. I'm very sorry that we weren't up to your standards, or whatever it was that they complained about. And they do it in that very loose way that literally means nothing, but it appeases the situation. But I'm just going to put it out there as a planting of the seed. Perhaps Rumpus is the guy behind the AI, because it does sound like him.
The AI, that's the only bit I didn't like, because Nathan on a number of times pointed out the contradiction, and instead of acknowledging the contradiction, it said, I'm sorry you didn't understand. Was the only bit. It was added, it didn't recognize its own contradiction, and they blamed the reader.
I got a question for Nathan.
No, but hold on. It probably was legitimate, though. It legitimately thought, like, no, you're not understanding the information, but it didn't take into consideration the judgment of the integrity of the information. So it was trying to, like, yeah, these ends don't add up, but this is all I got to go with, and I'm going to do it the right way because I'm programmed to. And, oh, you didn't understand my readout. You didn't understand how it is contradicting, but I have no other option. Well, here is what I can do with that. That's what I think it was doing. It wasn't patronizing.
It was totally patronizing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but it doesn't make
when I
any
read that,
sense.
just one second, Owen. When I read that, hold on, hello, one sec. When I read that, what went through my mind is whoever's programmed it to give you that response in that manner could easily substitute that with, you don't understand, you dumb flat earther. And that could be the repetitive response that it churned out every single time you pointed out a contradiction. That would be much more human-like. But it's just a substitution, one for the other. I'm sorry you don't understand my contradiction isn't what you got. You got, I'm sorry you didn't understand.
Did you get an answer?
No recognition.
It's like,
it's ambiguous. I mean,
no, it's not. It totally put the blame on the reader for not comprehending the text. You don't understand is what it said, as Nathan says, yeah? That was a human saying that. He said it in a polite way. I'm sorry that you don't understand. Yeah? It's totally patronizing. That's the right word, Owen.
Yeah, but that's a human trait to interpret it like that. Let me explain why. It's not concerned with that. It would have to be specifically programmed to have that separated sensation, that sentience. It doesn't have that. It's only, hold on. It's only programmed to mimic human behavior to be more smooth.
I understand its limitations.
Not a simulate.
I'm not discussing that. I'm saying the text it uses, what it's written, it's been programmed to respond when you point out a contradiction, is to not recognize the contradiction and to blame the reader for lack of comprehension, even though there's a clear comprehension that the reader has just pointed out. He doesn't recognize that, goes back and again, gives that same text, which is patronizing because it's blaming the reader in the way it was programmed.
Well, maybe it was programmed to project because it literally doesn't have the complicated faculties to contemplate the situation of the information it's being fed being
That's not what Adam's saying.
But do you understand?
That's not what Adam is saying.
It isn't what Adam's saying, but it's also a point. Hold on, before I lose control again. The point Owen's making is, it's not designed to be anything more than a glorified compiler of search engine results to disseminate them in a human-like fashion to you. That's all it is. Arwen's saying it hasn't been programmed to contemplate contradictions and then calibrate for or recalibrate its programming for the contradiction. It's just designed to disseminate the information. And as far as it's concerned, it's right. Therefore, the pre-programmed response is that you haven't comprehended it, because it's not wrong. It's just delivering information. So therefore, why wouldn't it tell you that you haven't comprehended it? It's delivered it to you, hasn't it? But it's not thinking that. It hasn't got the brain to think.
Right.
Exactly. That was exactly my point.
Right.
I wasn't giving
Right. No one missed
actual
it, but Adam's
intelligence.
point is different.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah. I was just pointing out that that is correct, Owen. Yeah, we are in agreement on that. I'm saying the way in which it has responded is patronizing. There's no assumption that it could be wrong. It doesn't say, yeah, well, a feedback request or done. It just assumes it is right. And the language it uses to tell you that is to tell that you have not, I am sorry you don't understand. Not I am sorry I've not delivered it correctly, or that there may be a contradiction. It assumes it is right because it is a program, as you say. But the text that the programmers have used is patronizing.
Okay, we've dwelled on this.
I think
enough.
it's an aberration.
And
I think it's
like
and it came out that way.
Oh, God.
I do understand how humans would absolutely interpret it like
This
that.
is a
And I mean,
psychology
it's
show.
not programmed to admit that it can be wrong.
Okay, who cares? It's not a
I
psychology
just
show.
had
Who
one
cares?
question I wanted to ask Nathan.
Go ahead, Neil.
I'm still trying to get a point in.
Go ahead, 10th, then Neil.
All right. My goodness. It's like reaching a resolution department when the product isn't performing the way it's supposed to. They're very nice to you. They say, okay, what's the problem? Okay, let me look into it. Can I please place you on hold for a minute? And it takes like forever, but they're very nice. And so this AI is programmed to be very nice and miss the contradiction.
Okie dokie. Now, Adam, you said you wanted us to cover Mind Shock today. Now, there's been some...
Am I what?
Go ahead, Neil.
I'll let Neil go, otherwise we'll be in trouble.
I just wanted to know if Fight the Flat Earth time-stamped where you were wrong. Or did he just ignore you?
I don't know, Neil. I wasn't wrong. I was being presented with the same information I've been presented with for 7 years. To an AI bot. What's he going to do? Go to the timestamp where I was shown to be contradicting myself? And I wasn't, Neil. So he's not going to.
Okay, that's all. Make the audience hear that.
Okay. Do I need to? I think more of my audience than that. I know they're not thick. The people who want to believe that in my audience. You want me to reiterate that? Oh, God.
Just read that super chat.
I don't have to, because it's back and forth with Neil's not possible. I don't know if it's his connection. Shout out to Godzilla37. AI here, you are totally misrepresenting me. I didn't say that. You just don't understand. Yeah, that's what it could have put instead of, I'm sorry, I didn't make that information clear enough, or whatever it said. Yeah, it could be substituted with exactly that at the beginning when you say, no, that's contradictory, or no, that isn't correct, or no, gravity isn't a force pulling anything. You know, I'm sorry that I wasn't clear enough. I'll say it again. Then I'll be clearer. Thanks for the super chat, Godzilla. Just as 100 people watching, jolly good stuff. Thank you very much to all of you who smashed the share button. Really appreciate the support. That's the only reason there's 100 people watching. So if you have shared already, thank you very much indeed. If you haven't, please smash the share button. That's how we end up at the end of the live show with about 120 people watching of late. So that's brilliant compared to the recent numbers, which have been awful. So thank you very much if you shared. Please share the show if you haven't. Also, I've pinned that AI Part 2, The Sky Vacuum. So FE versus AI Part 2, The Sky Vacuum, with a thumbnail of iRobot. So go and check it out. It's pinned in the live stream comments, so you can go and check it out. There's an advert, the trailer, is the other video that I released this morning, which is the 1.5 minute narrated clip of AI admitting that you can't have gas pressure without a container. So check that out, and that's what you get as a preview if you go and click on it now. Obviously, come back to the live show, but then when the live show finishes in about half an hour or so, just go and watch it. I'll spam the link when it comes to the end of the live show, or hopefully Divergent Droid will spam the link as I'm rounding out the live show, and you can all go and check it out. We'll see how it does. You might get a part 3 and 4, which have already been made, and part 4 is getting published to the members tomorrow. They might come out too if it does particularly well, which I don't expect it will, and neither does Anthony. But we'll see. Okie dokie. Should we carry on with housekeeping, or, as I was going to ask Adam, although there's been some detractors to doing a mind shock again, did you want to do it?
Yes, and I'm glad Tony's here. Because what I found interesting was how you and Brian were reacting instantly to every little nuance, how you deal with it differently. And that's not how I viewed it when I listened to it. I did say, I did think you might jump on bits and said, just let it play. But the purpose of me bringing it was really just to show a different style. It isn't necessarily right or wrong, but to me, yielded great results. And a little bit in terms of what we were saying yesterday, in terms of changing tact a little bit, not necessarily direction, but tact of dealing with people. I think it could be quite useful. It's maybe a little frustrating to some, but not everybody's as tuned. And I think the slow method he does is quite useful.
You got a link?
Yeah, I've put it in Master B, just above 10's picture.
Okay. Where did we get to? Do you know?
About halfway, I would say, didn't we?
Okay, we'll go with that then. About halfway.
Randomly there, yeah, because it is a bit slow.
I've got an advert playing. Just give me time to size
Tony,
it.
if you're there, I'd say I'm glad you're here, because your style is what Nathan said. Is he's letting him beg the question. That was part of the critique, and that's part of the critique given to you. So I'd be interested in your viewpoint of how well this guy does.
No, don't misrepresent what I said. I'm
not.
Let me just clarify what I said. I said that if I didn't critique him for leading the guest with the globe earth begging the question fallacy, then someone like Anthony could be rightly annoyed at me, because when I yell at him, don't beg the question for them, if I didn't criticise it, Anthony would be like, well, you moan at me for that. That was what I was driving at.
Yeah, that's a fair summary, yeah.
Are you there, Anthony? Are you going to pipe up during this?
Yeah. Re-ask the question, Adam.
There is no question. I was just pointing out to Adam when we've last covered this Mensa guy that if I wasn't critiquing the guy for begging the question on behalf of the globe-believing guest, then you could rightly say, hang on a minute, the amount of times you've told me not to beg the question for him, and you've got to make apologetics for why you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, the reality is, like, it depends on how you want to have the conversation. If you want to, like, nip it in the bud, don't allow them to beg the question. And sometimes it is worth doing that, because a lot of these arguments do stem from begging the question. But if you nip it in the bud, then there is no conversation, is there? So it's like, I was listening to Bev Try Thinking yesterday I think it was yesterday. I'm not entirely sure when it was. It might not have been, but he was having a go at Charles, Flat Earth Math. And Charles actually joined the show, and they had a back and forth. And when literally he got to the point where Charles was in the corner taking blows, he was about to hit the canvas, and he literally had to run away, because Bev was basically trying to say that the horizontal line is a straight line, and it's perpendicular with vertical. And when it got to applying that in the real world, Charles just could not do it, because he had to insist that if you have a flagpole in London and a flagpole in America, somewhere like New York or wherever, then two verticals are not parallel to each other. And Bev was ramming it into his head, and he was losing badly. And the next thing that he had to do was admit that because in the end, what he said was that horizontal line is straight, but level between the two cities is a curved surface. And Bev said, well, why is that? And he said, because globe. So because he got into that mental state where he can't think that it's not a globe, it has to be a globe. He's curving the straight line, and he won't concede that point. So rather than concede the point that he's curving the straight line, he ran away. So that to me, that means that he can't come back now for a while, in the same way that conspiracy cats can't come back because he can't get around the gas pressure without a container argument. And flat earth math, he's been struggling with the one that Nathan pointed out to him. So he's had to disappear for a while. He's now going to have to disappear again. But these people are disappearing quite a lot at the moment. They go on a sabbatical. They don't come back online for many months, and they say that they've been busy real world. When actually what they're really doing is applying the half-life of a lie. The more time you put between stating the lie and then coming back on the scene, most people will have forgotten about it. But with cats, he ain't going to get away with gas pressure without a container. Flat earth maths, he ain't going to get away with Eratosthenes assumed that a ball when he did his maths. And this goes on and on and on. The real surveyor, the main surveyor, he's vanished because of a reason. I don't know exactly the reason, but he's vanished and he can't reappear, according to Bev. Jesse Kozlowski, he's disappeared. He can't reappear because he said something daft. So if you allow them to beg the question, you do get to the point where they get to a contradiction, and it's trying to narrow it down to that point where they get in a corner and they lose. And it's not easy because they use sophistry, they use insults, they use distraction, they use deflection, they use all sorts of tactics to try and get away from being cornered. But if you don't allow them to beg the question in the first place, you don't get that opportunity to watch them die. And that is where we're at. So it's a balance between the two. I'm done.
Well, you just
Sorry, Anthony, we don't let them beg the question here.
Well, by doing so, I have Charles over a barrel, and we'll just, hopefully someone will spam the link to Charles lying, because in that example, you said he assumed R, i.e. the parallel zenith position of two flagpoles from here to America, UK to America, wouldn't be parallel anymore. And why? Well, because of globe Earth. That's an assumption of an R-based sphere beneath the feet of the two people between those two flagpoles, i.e. requires an R assumption. Right. Charles is on record with super chats flowing into his show when I went off my, what is it they call this, echo chamber? Yeah, when I went to Charles, on Charles's neutral platform, he muted me when I got him to admit that he does require the use of an R value, because he was telling his audience, this is why he disappeared last time, that it wasn't required. Lying. Now, the moment I got him over a barrel and admitting that, yes, he has absolutely used R and assumed it because he needs to, I begged the question, Anthony. He had to mute me, shut me down, and, basically do all the things I'm criticised for doing here. Not that I do. When someone's getting me over a barrel and I'm muting them as I'm getting them over a barrel and they're fundy muting and chanting through the conclusion of their defeat. Charles muted me when that happens. That's why this platform exists. But for all those people who think that, oh no, you just don't go on quote-unquote neutral platforms. A civil discussion was the name of the show Charles hosted, with me being muted when pointing out that he lied to his audience who were paying him to lie and affirming his lie in super chat form. Yeah, see, Nathan's wrong, we don't need R. Oh, right, well, there's Charles in rebuttal to Bev telling him that he just assumes R to get around the problem. Yeah, so even the last bastion of a defence for Charles is to assume R, making him a proven liar. He always was. I proved it by not letting him beg the question.
So this is the difference, I think, in terms of what I'm presenting. This is not a debate. This is two friends talking. So instead of like trying to win the debate by smashing the door open, there's flat Earth. I think what's happening here is teaching the guys that this Mensa guy to pick the lock himself. He's giving him the key, the lock picking skills to undo this himself in a much more efficient way. So he's not arguing. There's no debate. He's getting him to agree on some principles that are going to eventually wreck his own head because he's an intelligent guy. That's the difference here, and why I would be asking for the allowing to the permissions we've mentioned. That's the purpose, because it's a very different scenario to debating Charles Flat Earth math on something. It's not a debate. If you listen to this, it's
I won't say manipulated, but swayed. Yes, I had.
All right. Well, since developing your IQ, where are you at right now?
I have to do more personal research, but on the middle ground, in truth. I mean, I know I have heard about the moon landings and the picture of that all being fake and the moon itself fake. But
Did we already cover this?
I think we're about another 5 or so minutes in, weren't we? This is where it's getting annoying and begging the question, isn't it? But you see, to me, these are points when you're dealing with a normie. I'm happy chatting about it and going into. You don't even have to go into flat Earth. You can convince somebody that that's a place they've been lied to. It's not a bad starting point.
Actually, into Scientism.
Just in 2015, Nathan, we used to have a saying where you'd say, if you can't convince them that the moon landings were fake, don't carry on talking to them, because if you've not got that thing, so it's a good grounding to see the barriers you're going to have to deal with when you're debating someone. The moon landing is a good place to start.
Evidence, very good evidence. I think that would probably shut the flat earthers up. What do you think?
I would like to believe that it would.
Although at a further point, you'd probably have to do it twice. You'd have to do it horizontally and vertically, and you'd have to have verification at all sites.
Indeed, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
And put a camera. You know what else would be cool? If you did that, put a camera through each one all the way through.
Indeed.
So that would be good evidence. Okay, now on the flip side, what kind of evidence would you require for the flat Earth geocentric model to be true?
Probably feels that the same methodology should be able to apply. Because, I mean, I'm imagining if it's considered a flat Earth, that would mean that, well, the shape wouldn't matter, I guess, in this case, square, circular, or whatever.
So there's two main models of the flat Earth that I've seen. I mean, I'm sure there
are. Shout out to Multi Tom Tom. It says, New Year, new super chat. Thank you very much indeed for the support. Really appreciate it.
Others, but I think the two most popular ones.
Why I went,
yeah, and quite. But listen to the context he's talking. He's talking third person. Yeah, he's talking about flat earthers, and he's luring him in, isn't he? He's luring him in to try and create a validation, because I think we've probably skipped over the bit where he's said, I like empiricism, hasn't he? And he's put it to him, how are you going to validate this?
Our infinite plane and snow globe encased with some kind of firmament. So that would be or I guess it could still be on an infinite plane, but...
Insert obvious Nathan objection here. We'll carry on.
But the globe, the dome over the flat Earth would not be infinite, because it would be finite.
Indeed. Then that actually makes me think about, again, if you really did live in a dome, you would have to come to that point and then be stopped by either said invisible wall.
And have you heard, okay, so you're not that familiar, I guess, with the flat Earth argument. So they point...
Sorry, did he just say you'd have to reach a point and then be stopped by invisible walls? Was that his response?
Mm-hmm. Look, now this bit, I want to cite Nathan Oakley as a defense for allowing this. Nathan Oakley, I don't have a problem with Mark Sargent saying these things to newbies to open their minds up, to get them to start thinking about it. And I don't, and this is what I see is happening here. A very intelligent man.
No. Stop. I'm not critiquing Mindshock. I'm critiquing the Mensa guy. What he said was, there's going to be an invisible wall. That's what he said.
Could be.
Could be. Why would the wall be invisible?
I've got a Mensa guy postulating now about the possibilities of flat Earth. I'm happy at this point. Yeah, but I'm not thinking, I don't want to go down that path. I'm thinking, loving it. He's opened his mind up. He's now exploring possibilities.
Yeah, but to claim an invisibility wall, that would immediately mean, so there's things visible beyond it then. So there's something beyond it then. I mean...
Arwin knows where I'm going. Exactly.
I don't want... Right, so this is the point. I don't want to go down into the feast of nonsense with him. I'm happy at this point to realise that he's opened his mind up. I can move on.
Fine.
taken to the next level. Yeah.
No.
It's not a
Now that
block.
Arwin's verbalized what I wasn't going to because it's preemptively putting words in his mouth, and you've said feast of nonsense regurgitation, I'm happy to move on. The audience knows enough of what we would be objecting to if we laboured this. I'm going to carry on playing.
To the Antarctic Treaty, the only treaty in the history of the world that has never been broken. If that's true, I didn't really fact check that. I think that's in modern times, I guess that might be true. You're not actually allowed to go to Antarctica. So if Antarctica encircles, and of course, the anti-flat earthers say you are, but the cruises that go to Antarctica, they only go on the outer edge periphery. And you're not allowed to go there by yourself and just explore. You'll be stopped.
So what? Will you, number one, and if you are in line with the Antarctic Treaty, so what?
Some people have been. Here
we go.
But that's news to a lot of people. Listen there, he's not he goes, he didn't know that.
Okay. But I see it as completely non sequitur.
Because you're informed. You're informed. But this is about taking a complete newbie, just loading them up with knowledge they don't have.
Oh, I
he
couldn't
didn't know
disagree
that.
more. If I want to fight against something, when someone's like, well, what are you fighting for? And I'm like, well, I don't want to convert anybody. It's up to you what you believe in and all the rest of it, right? Partially the reason for that is because of stuff like this. Now, I know you're trying to fight this guy's corner, and I get it, but what annoys me is that the way this guy's mindset is being cemented by the host, Mind Shock, is in line with the feast of nonsense that will make him... Was that a double use of nonsense? I think it was. Just the feast of nonsense information being fed to him in such a manner that he's going to lend significance to Antarctica and lend credence to the all the way around an ice wall. All of these ideas are being planted in his mind as we go along by the, if he is or isn't, it doesn't matter, flat earther we're going to call him, the guy who's planting the seed. But what kind of seed's he planting? Well, he's planting a GMO tract with the microchip seed. That's what he's planting, as far as I'm concerned. And I know you're like, well, no, you've said Mark Sargent's all right to do it. This guy's not Mark Sargent. Sorry.
No, because he's made it quite.
Can I give an opinion?
You can. Adam, carry on, and then yes, 10th.
Yeah, I agree.
Go 10th. Go.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm with Adam here, 100%. Here's why. We're informed. We can shut it down at step 1 or step 3 into it, or wait and be patient. And look, I let you talk, but I wanted to stop you earlier, but I was being polite. We got what you're saying, Nathan, because we're every day on it. What's happening here is important because this MENSA guy is not on the defensive. He's open and he's listening to things, even though they may be 2015 or Feast of Nonsense or something that might be true, but not proven. So why are we talking about it? It doesn't matter. The point is there's a conversation and a relationship that's bringing out some nuggets. And this is what Adam spotted here. And so you can say these things, wait until it's all said and done, and then say, what did the MENSA guy say? Is he convinced now that he lives on the globe? Because he just said this. So you can't get there, much like Anthony went through the process of, if you let them beg the question to a certain way, they corner themselves. If you stop it right away, then you can't get them to corner themselves because you ended it. And they got nothing to say to you. It's like when I brought up the fact
stop.
that Andrew Thomas Young...
Go on to a new point.
I'm almost done.
No. You're going on to a new point. Just let me address that. No. Begging the question is cornering himself.
No, it's an example for this point.
Yeah, I know. I got your point, but I'm just going to reiterate.
No, I'm
begging
not
the question
against that.
is cornering yourself.
No, he's
right, but there's a different cornering that happened. There's a different cornering that happens if they talk too, not just the begging the question cornering. Let me end with this example. Andrew Thomas Young, when I presented that paper, said that it's got to be at 1.2 miles. And then Andrew Thomas Young, of course, it's over right there. Okay, because it's got to be geometric, etc. Then he brings in refraction. And he says, with refraction, their refraction. Not real refraction, their refraction. It can be no further than 1.32 miles. Well, to me, you lose both ways. It's over. But if I'm not allowed to show that even their scapegoat refraction, which isn't real refraction, doesn't save them with the black swan, 1.2, 1.32, what's the difference? They lose both ways. If we never allow that, you never see that even their excuse corners.
It's a false comparison. You're comparing a Moses Toland's construction where you're not begging the question, you're affirming their position to take it apart. That's not the same as begging the question. It's also not the same when I say you corner somebody with their use of their begging the question fallacy when they do it versus you doing it for them. Now, when you do it for them, you close the door of calling out that fallacy behind you when you do it for them.
We're not in fallacy territory at this point. I could just summarize where he's leading as what I've heard. The first bit where we started, it missed the bit where he asked him to describe how empirically he was going to validate his globe. He then said, how would you do it on flat Earth? Saying using the same equipment. He then goes to point out that his empirical way of doing it, and this is why he raises the South Atlantic Treaty, is to point out that whilst he thinks he could just do that, no, you can't even go there, mate. And so he's not using it to prove the shape of the Earth. He's proving that this assumption that he's got free roam in the realm isn't there either. And actually, he would need special permissions that nobody gets to be able to do this experiment, this thought experiment that he's done, that would prove it. So he's demonstrating to him that he can't do this himself, just like he can't go to space himself. So he's now showing him that he can't demonstrate. This is the point of the setup, really. It's not the North Atlantic, the Antarctic Treaty being a proof of Earth. It's just demonstration that the empirical way he thinks he can validate it's not as simple as that.
No, as we talked about it in the pre-show, right, when I was asked, why would you say you haven't got a horse in a certain race? In this race, I have got a horse in it. Now, number one, I want my panel to fight his corner for all the positive virtues of what he's doing. And I do want to be the detractor and say why he's bad and wrong and should be doing it differently, so that it is all heard in context. Now, I want it to be made clear as well that while I'm taking that knife-edge sharpening attitude towards the way he's disseminating this information, it's so that what you get as an audience member is hyper-refined, as well as with the apologetics of, well, no, there's more than one way to skin a cat here. I've had plenty of debates with Anthony about this, and there is, and I don't disagree. And in the same way I would, not in the middle of a live show where we're trying to make a point and be on topic for Flat Earth, I would go, yeah, great job. If I was just watching this, I'd probably be, nodding along in the same way Adam's trying to disseminate to me. And it's not to say that I wouldn't also do the same thing. But that's not what we do here. This is a live show about Flat Earth debate. So in terms of at least one person, if I wasn't doing it, I'd hope somebody else was. And I was going, no, but this is a great video because he's getting the guy to agree. I could be playing that role here. I just don't want, if Mindshock specifically was watching it back, to go, my God, the guy thinks I'm crap. No, I don't. No. Don't get the wrong impression. We're refining the edge of the blade, and it's very sharp already. So, don't mistake our high standards for a critique that isn't worthy. It is, and I am still right. And so is Adam, though. That's, the most important point here. We'll carry on.
It's that juxtaposition, Nathan. That's why I wanted this video on. Yeah. Because it's horses for courses as well. Like I said, this is not a debate with Fight the Flat Earth, yeah, where you do want a big wieldy axe. This is somebody you're trying to coax along, not scare them off with gas pressure without a container straight away and block their mind. You're trying to make them think. Like you reserve for friends, not debates.
That's the point I get from what you're saying. It's not a debate to where you're going to bring out the hammer.
A quick
I will do later on.
Just 1 second. Just a quick shout out to Blue Ridge Ranger, who says, because Nathan said Creedence, in quotes, the greatest American rock band. So presumably I've got a super chat because I said a word that reminded somebody of a band. So thank you very much, Blue Ridge Ranger. Really appreciate the support. As I've got the mic open for me, and I will plug this at the end of the show as well, in about 5, maybe, no, a bit less, a bit more, sorry, 7 minutes time, this live show will end, and part 2 of Flat Earth versus AI, what's the name of the show? Sky Vacuum, yeah, will come out. It's pinned to the top of the live stream. Hopefully it'll get spammed by one of the mods when the show's rounding out. But go and check that out. There's also a preview attached to it that is a video that's already been released that you can see separately, but, you know, save you the bother if you go and click on it now. Obviously come back. Great that we've got 112 people watching. Fantastic, fantastic. But yeah, check that out once the live stream ends. Right, guys.
You want to finish it, Nathan? You want to finish the credence line?
Did I not finish it?
No, you guys have Clearwater Revival. You might get some more super chats.
What if I say it? Let's just carry on.
Credence, and the guy gave you a super chat. That's one of 3 names.
Oh, I see.
Credence, Clearwater Revival. Maybe you get 2 more chats if you say.
I see. Maybe if I say, you know, it's like dealing with the Beatles. Maybe that'll get me more super chats. I don't know, 10th. I'd rather just carry on with the video.
There's documented cases where people have been trying to go to Antarctica by boat or whatnot, and they were met with military and arrested.
Very intriguing.
So there is a dome.
Anecdotally.
You're absolutely right. You'd be able to go to that dome edge. Now, some people argue...
What dome edge? We must have containment. I don't know about this dome.
If the flat Earth model is true and the dome is true, and it was artificially created to prevent humans from traveling that far, for example, would you have temperatures so cold that you wouldn't survive long enough to reach the edge of the dome? And would the oxygen deplete so severely that you would never be able to travel high enough to reach the dome?
It would be a great defense.
So is that the way our Earth is set up? But either way, if you can't travel... So the flat earthers, I would guess, think that certain government entities, or the Illuminati per se, they do have a presence in Antarctica, and they are aware of the edge of the dome, which is part of the reason for the Antarctic Treaty, and they would prevent any private citizen from verifying this information.
Right, right.
And as far as going high enough, how would a private citizen be able to reach the edge of, to reach the surface of the dome?
Indeed, again, that's and that is a big issue in my opinion. Again, I mean, if there's certain people with the privileged capability or information to reach to said areas, I mean, as a regular person, again, how am I supposed to verify this myself without having to make such a huge cost?
And as we pointed out before, I mean, it is kind of strange how the most heavily indoctrinated are so heavily triggered by anyone even questioning the shape of the Earth. Like, even people that are saying, oh, I'm not sure, those indoctrinated into the cult of authority worship because they just believe, like, if you went to school for something and you spent all that, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, like, let's say the Earth really is flat. Would he ever admit it, even if he knew it was flat? Because his career is over.
At that point, or it could be a new beginning.
It could be, but I think the other issue with conspiracies and with coincidence theory.
Have you got anything you wanted to add to any of this, Adam?
Other than he's now accepted, so he's gone through that with a little bit of anecdotal. It's not necessarily direct related, but it is verifiable. The information is given him, and the MENSA guys come to the conclusion that it's going to be very difficult for him as a private citizen to be able to verify this himself. He can't go to space. He can't get high enough to even see if space exists. He's got to that concept. It's not even, he's happy to work in that flat earth model, as it were, to, imagine what's going off, what he could do if both models, how can he do this? And he's accepted that fundamentally for a private citizen, he's at the whim of what the government tell him.
Theorists is they are so egotistical, as Mark Twain once said, it's easier to fool someone than convince them they've been fooled. So I think a lot, and of course the pride cometh before the fall, but the hubris is so extreme especially by so-called professionals, because Neil deGrasse Tyson is supposed to be this leading astrophysicist. How silly is it if he got hoodwinked and he was basically tricked into believing in the heliocentric globe model when the flat Earth model is true? Is there any way that he comes out of this not looking like an idiot?
Again, this would require, in my opinion, a spin doctor.
That's a good one.
But also, again, if usually, again, the way a person decides to approach a scenario always, in my opinion, has a big influence as to how people will perceive them afterwards. I mean, if they're afraid of looking like a fool, they'll more than likely end up acting in every way that will lead to them looking like a fool. As opposed to the person who is willing to admit that, again, this is the information that I was given. It's
I find that quite interesting that the Mensa guy, that if he knows he's lying, he's going to end up looking like a fool. We've just spent yesterday demonstrating Tyson looking like a fool. Is that a nice prediction of how somebody will behave that we've been demonstrating? He's not sat and done a NDT video critique, I wouldn't have thought. He's just stated, and it matches what we've been demonstrating.
It seemed very good at the time, reliable and trustworthy.
It's exactly what I was thinking.
You know, and
Go on.
Yeah, it's what Adam just commented. My mind went to yesterday's critique of Neil deGrasse Tyson when he said that. But earlier, he said, it might be a new beginning. Notice what Adam is catching here and trying to share with us is that this guy is not in a debate. And he out of his own mouth said, well, if we found out all this stuff, then, hey, good news. It might be a new beginning. He didn't act like a baller. He didn't act like someone who's going to fight you. He's open. He's now when he gets our arguments, the FED refined arguments, it's going to be a headache for him because he's already opened the gate.
That's quite funny because in the comments, I did say that one of the commentators in the video halfway down says, why don't you try this guy next time with some of the FED housekeeping questions? And I think by the time next time you meet him, he's ready for that level. Like I say, he's open and he's listening and he's
softening up.
Perfect. Okay, with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this live, then there's a link in the live stream chat to FE versus Artificial Intelligence Part 2, which is the Sky Vacuum. So that's going to be premiering in the next couple of minutes. So go and check that out if you are watching this live. However, if you're watching this on either premiering stream, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
The AI interaction is turning out a lot more interesting than I thought it would.
Did you like reading it?
I didn't expect a bit, but the point is that I didn't expect this to happen. I didn't think that it would actually go, well, anti-flat Earth like that.
Oh, I did.
And that's interesting.
Oh, I definitely did. That's why I did it. I expected it to regurgitate the common man rhetoric that I find when I search for a subject that we cover. By just doing a random search and what you get in the general rhetoric back. There'll be 1% truth that you can find in amongst the 90% double speak and 9% periphery.
I don't know. I thought it would be more like explaining it from a third person, perhaps, right? But I never tried it out myself. But I would just think like, oh, there's this one group that thinks like this and the other one thinks like that, that it would get that. But I don't know.
I
I
still
guess
think it was Rumpus.
it does seem like Rumpus may have been used as a template for the design of this thing concerning the arguments.
Nah, just Rumpus is a machine that can spew out rhetoric. That's all he is. That's all he's doing.
Oh, maybe he was a living prototype.
No. All an AI algorithm is doing is pumping out the rhetoric, and all Rumpus does is pump out the rhetoric. It's not like they're based one on the other, or it's comparable because he's churning out rhetoric that he's learned. That's it.
Yes, but to be fair, Rumpus existed first, so you cannot exclude that he could have been used as a template for the response.
Fine. Yes. Okay. Maybe Rumpus was used as the template.
Exactly.
No.
Come on. Why not?
Because it's algorithmically based. It's just going to pull from the same information he's parroting. That's all.
No, I can prove that it wasn't based on Rumpus.
There you go.
Because Nathan started typing and he was allowed to completely finish his sentence before he actually got the response. If it was Rumpus, he'd be deleting the characters as Nathan's typing them in.
Yeah, and he would probably say mute, 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 mute.
Yeah.
I like that when I get into the wrangle dangle with a baller when they've got the bravery to actually come into the live chat, and then I'll go in and start debating with them, and they get their ass handed to them, start getting into stuck record or parrot mode, and I'll start laughing at them, and everyone in the chat will be laughing at them, and then I'll be asking them when they can't respond to a difficult question if they've been muted. So they're in the chat. Obviously, there's no mute button. I'll be like, "You've been muted. Is that why you're not responding?"
Yeah, that's a good way.
They love accusing me of using the mute button. Like I say, every time I've ever gone off.
You bastard.
Pardon?
You muted me, you bastard.
Now, what I do is I close lines when there's audio chaos. I've got to pick one line, right? Otherwise, the audience can't hear. So if you've decided that you're going to rumpus me, well, that's tough luck.
So technically, you do admit that you do mute. You just
all of the lines are,
managing.
no, all of the lines are gated, and there's a manual override for every channel. It's just a desk, Arwin.
But what you can say,
Right,
Nathan,
so you are muting it.
what you can
Closing
say
the
is that
gate.
you're at least fair and indiscriminate, because if you mute me as well, then it shows that you're impartial, right?
It shows that I want to run a show that you can hear.
No, I would argue that it shows impartiality.
What if I... What? No, it shows that human behaviour is no different if you're a flat earther or a globe believer, and at some point, if you're losing, you'll try and talk through the host so that your point isn't defeated. Because if the overcome for your point is talked through, then you don't get to hear it as an audience member, therefore it's not heard, therefore they haven't got to overcome it.
That was a perfect Freudian slip there.
What was?
You quickly move in your point because you're afraid of being rumpus. No, I mean, because that is what it is, really, a lot of the time. Like, quickly get your point out because everybody's piping up, and that means you got to get it out quickly before the moment's lost, and you literally forget what you're even talking about because the energy is high.
Well, it is high. It does take a lot of energy mentally to do it, but that isn't necessarily the problem. The problem is the projection of the guilt they have when they rumpus a point. Use the fundy mute button, right? The distinct difference is when it gets to the end of somebody on our side with a winning point or showing that they're a liar. Let's use Charles as we used it in the live show as the example, right? So Charles declares he doesn't need R. I say, yes, you do. Here's an example of you using it. And he says, no, but for further examples, I wouldn't need to. So then I lead him to need to use it. And when he does, he goes very high-pitched and says, that's just an estimate. Right? That's how it's gone up until this point, right? Now, when I say, well, you using it when you've told your audience and they've paid you by super chats because I'm apparently stupid because you don't need R, says Charles, and now here's you using it, that makes you a liar. Now, the reason I'm proving you a liar, Charles, in this example, is because I want you to confess to the fact you can't measure it. So, when it gets to the wrangle-dangle of the very point of me being on his show, because that's all I've ever asked him, where'd you get your R measurement? it gets to that point, which is, as I say, the only reason I'm there, he mutes me. That's because he doesn't want to have to answer the question. He's denying needing it at all because he can't measure it. So when he needs it and uses it, and I get to ask him, where'd you get the measurement? That's when he mutes me. And that's me having the coup de grace taken away from me because he doesn't want the awkward loss. Now, by contrast, when there's 3 people speaking and I need to keep the show audible, yes, I'll close down one of the 3 lines so that you can at least only hear 2 of the 2 people talking through each other rather than a complete shit show. Excuse me. So that means that the audience gets to listen to the show. That's all that means. Now, if you're going to say, well, would you shut down a line if you're delivering that coup de grace like it was on Charles' show and he muted you? If by contrast it was this show and Charles was sat on my show, and rather than him having the ability to just close my line, mute me, he started rumpusing. So I say, well, okay, where'd you get your arm measurement? It's what we get from Charles. Maybe I should be asking you a question. Maybe I should be taking control. That's what you get, right? Now, in that circumstance, would I, essentially, it's the same scenario, close the line on Charles? Yeah, I would. Absolutely, without question, it's my show and I'm going to keep control of it, especially when there's a point being won taken away from the victor by the loser with underhanded rumpusing tactics, which is what they do. There's a very distinct difference between stopping someone from winning by talking through them or muting them and being allowed to win by stopping the person stopping you doing that. Make sense?
Yes.
Now, in that convoluted nonsense, all the audience knows is, so you're saying that there's muting going on. Yeah, that's what a show involves. Retaining control of all of the different people. And when there's 25, 30 people here, you've got to be able to retain control of all of them. Now, for the most part, I can do that verbally. For the most part, I can tell people in the Discord panel that I'm going to mute them, when 99% of the time I don't. And that's enough to take control. Right? That's all that's necessary. But that's all it's for, so that everybody can be heard. Now, I'm sure Adam's pointed this out in the past. I think it was actually QE. If it ever reached the point where that scenario that I've just given out was me stopping the Globe believer from disseminating their winning point, then I'd be hauled over the coals. That would be played at nausea, in clips, everywhere, always, and I'd never hear the end of it. Yeah? And all of the things that we call them, when they try and fundy mute our winning points, we call them cowards, and they just laugh in our faces because they can get away with the consensus behind them. It doesn't matter because everyone believes me when I stop you from making your winning point by fundy muting. Now, we can't do that. We're held to the highest of standards. That's not to say that I'm not going to stop somebody letting me win when I've won. Why would I? I've got control of the show. I've set the show up so I can win, where in the places like Charles, as was exactly the case, when it gets to that winning point that I've got, it gets shut down. With no objection, they're all giving him money for him making his point that he doesn't need to use R. When I say, there you go, there's you using R, where'd you get the measurement? Oh, I've been muted. Yeah, that's why I've got a show. Because otherwise we can never win. Not only is it fighting against the consensus and the general worldview that they're on a sphere regardless of what you say, if you have got a winning point and it's shut down because every single quote-unquote neutral platform will not allow you to make a winning point, then what do? You set up the alternative. That's here. And what do? You deal with them projecting the very reason you've got the platform back onto you when you take control of it. Oh, what? You shut people down when they stop you making your winning point? On a neutral platform, you just wouldn't have been allowed to make the winning point. Much more fair. That's what they want. They want every single base covered for us to interact with them. Now, Tyson exemplifies that because he's not even got anybody objecting to the absurdity that he descends to when he verbalizes it to his audience. Oh, well, I've just got the worldview on my side and flat earthers might be too charismatic. So much bullshittery around that statement, as was pointed out in the live show. But that's what he can get away with, because the standards are so low for proving your globe faith. Putting across the argument in an AI context that's contradictory was enough for anti-flat earther fight the flat earth to say Nathan lost in one of my comment sections. So he genuinely believes I've lost when he reads contradictory doublespeak, because to him, that's a win. Right? So the standards are low if you're a globe believer. For us, they're not. They're up here. So I have to be uber careful about what I'm doing, even with my own side. Anthony will moan, well, I was rumpusing you. Surely you shouldn't have closed the line on me. Just shows that you're fair and mute everybody, is Anthony's general point he's trying to make here. No, I've got a slick control over my own show because I've been doing it for years. Doesn't mean that I am prejudicing somebody, as Anthony's trying to make that the point. Well, it isn't. How well controlled the show is has got nothing to do with whether or not this platform allows arguments to be made and the conclusions to be made and stops the person who's losing causing audio chaos to stop the loss. That's all that happens. Anyway, I'm done with my rant.
Yeah, Sleeping Warrior.
Why would you even need to explain that?
Because Sleeping Warrior's got this way of making it seem like some point is the main point of why I do something. In this instance, keep control of the show.
No, I was just saying that you were being impartial by muting me when obviously you get criticised by them for muting them, but he does it to me too, guys. So what's your problem?
He's done it again.
See? Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Surprised you didn't do the yeah first.
Anyway, are we going to do any more of this Mensa guy?
I'm sorry, I thought it was some baller appeal. I just got here, so I don't know what happened.
Did you hear me clarify what I meant when I said they would say QE had lost? It wouldn't matter if you won, lost, or exploded before the debate took place. If it says QE versus somebody on the thumbnail, they'll go to it, press pause, and say, look how badly you lost.
Yeah, they won't even watch the video. They'll just say, they'll just put in a post and say John wrecked or QE wrecked.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's what I meant. I wasn't in any way inferring that you'd lost a debate at some point, QE, because I read your comment. You're like, outrageous. Number one, like show me how you can substantiate this.
Number one, number two, number three. No, I was just messing with you, man.
No, you weren't.
I was a little bored. Oh yeah, that happens. You know that happens all the time. It's just
you ever heard the saying, "Many a true word spoken in jest."
Yeah.
Are you trying to spin this?
No. Let's move on. Are we going to go do the rest of this mind shock? Because I've got to be honest, Adam. Right, I've got nothing but critique for how he's presented Flat Earth because it's just so far from the cutting edge.
I'm happy with
who the AI
Mind Shock, a YouTuber that had a Mensa guy on.
Mind Shock, you got that creaky, screechy voice.
Adam's in love with him for some reason. I don't know.
I don't know either. I was listening to it the other day. The questions were belly laughers. I was like, there was so many stereotypes. I was like, what? Then he went off. I had to go listen to the whole thing because there was too many interruptions. It was pitiful. His performance was pitiful. Not the Mensa guy. I didn't even get to him yet.
So do we want to do more?
I think that just about gets everything on record. What I thought, yeah.
Okay. So are we done with the Mensa guy? I haven't got.
I'm happy. Yeah, I think the point's been made, and your opinion is what I expected. So yeah.
My question was not how happy are you? How much information did I disseminate? It's do we need to continue with it?
No, I think everything I asked for I've received.
Perfect.
So no, the point proven.
No, I did enjoy it.
Continue.
What? No, we're not going to continue.
Why not?
Because I've had enough of it. I like the Mind Shot guy and all, but we've done it twice, and Adam's happy. He's made his point. You've moaned he's got a squeaky voice. Gene's moaned he's got a squeaky voice.
Yo,
Really?
you got to check out the Steve McKeegan guy. He keeps talking shit.
He's a
we need to
nobody.
find more charismatic ball wizards.
He's the
like
next.
Neil deGrasse.
He's the next Simon Dan, right? Let's say he elevates himself to the lofty heights of Simon Dan. Wowee. He's no Michelle Thaler, is he, Gene?
You're right. Or we should get back to like the Laura Dansby, the people that are NASA officials or something.
Yeah.
Do Hassenpfeffer.
Yeah, let's do Hassenpfeffer.
And I don't mind. Just because I got to it first. Go ahead, do it.
It's one of those posh hot dogs, isn't it?
Pass Nathan the Hassenpfeffer.
There's enough Hassenpfeffers in the woods to go around.
I had a Hassenpfeffer in Germany. They shove it into a French stick. It's really tasty.
If you got a good one that you do, I'm going to do it over again.
I'm more than happy for both of us to be doing the same thing because I think this is the route to cover. It's like, you know, you appreciate the analogy of the slime that crawled out of the pond and then, you know, evolves into a human and then swims across the lake. I know you don't believe in evolution, but if you imagine we are that pond scum scraping our way at the sides and dealing with Dan clipping our aerials, so to speak. And then we eventually, you know, turn the fins into little flappy legs and we crawl our way onto the beach and then go, oh, look over there. They're all on lilos on that beach with jet skis and stuff. Let's go over there.
Do it.
We are. We're dealing with the Tysons
So who's the
and the Coxes.
Hawken guy?
The who guy?
No, go ahead and do Hassenpfeffer. Somebody go snatch that video. It's easy to find.
We'll do it tomorrow. We're in the after show now.
All right.
Yeah, they're the people I want to cover. I want to cover the priests. Why are you messing around with the disciples and the followers? Let's cover the priests.
Whoever's in the drag.
What do you think about the Joe
sewer?
Scott guy?
Say again.
I want a couple like QE wants to retire.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Nathan, maybe I got an idea. What if we do this thing that we've been doing, right? Reviewing baller wizards like mainstream, but like older stuff, like from the 20th century. I mean, you'd be surprised what you're gonna bump into now with this new mindset, looking through that old wizardry.
Yeah,
Maybe that's an idea.
Well, we've been looking at 10
Have you
years
guys
ago. You
checked
mean
out-
80s and 90s, I assume. But yeah, we are. I'm more than happy
Yeah.
to
You
do
guys
that.
checked out Joe Scott YouTube channel?
Who?
Well, just pull it back, Nathan, to the Mensa guy.
1.2 subs.
Just in terms of it, if we got somebody like him, okay, and there's no value in him listening to anti-flat earthers, but if he is interested, actually, the videos we're doing with like NDT and Coxie and that, there is value there because he's at the level that he's most likely to be able to understand the claims they're making and our rebuttals. So they're actually very useful, I think, for those that are interested, because we've done the anti-flat earthers and they have no value to us anymore. But I do think that these things do because they have value to genuine truth seekers that are at that guy's level. That would be, you know, I mean, I bet he'd be very interested in seeing that and be nodding along with us, you know, in the points we're making. So I think they have merit.
Even though the questions were malformed and delivered by a numpty dipshit, do you think that the Mensa guy's answers were, for lack of a better term, I just woke up, legitimate?
Yeah.
No.
And I think he was open enough to explore the possibility of it and explore, I think more importantly, recognize that he didn't have any real proofs. And that's the journey was being taken on there for me. Not proving flat earth, just demonstrating to him by not pushing the boundaries too much that he didn't have any proof or he couldn't prove it to himself. And I thought the Mensa guy was intelligent enough to recognize that point early on.
That was a closed-ended question, by the way.
You don't do those to me.
that the question I got is, now I'm just remembering one thing that he said. Like I said, I just woke up. He said the only way, or a good way to prove, I don't know if it was the only way, but a good way to prove that the Earth is spherical or flat is get the Earth and then cut it vertically and then cut it horizontally. Does that sound legitimate to you?
Well, no, you don't need two cuts.
One
you don't. You don't need two cuts.
No, but this is a Mensa guy.
Oh, hold on. I'm not done yet. What you're going for, why you're saying it's legitimate, is conceptually he's appealing to more or less to be empirical, not the actual criteria of what he said.
He was clever enough, right, when Mindshot saying we're going to be doing this empirically, to recognize that he had to cut the earth. He realized where he was going straight away. That's why I liked him. And he was honest enough to stay on the journey and be open-minded. He didn't.
No.
He recognized.
No,
he didn't need the implication of that.
I think we're talking about two different people. I'm talking about the legitimate answers from the Mensa guy versus the stupid question. Because it was the Mensa guy that said that he had to cut the earth.
Yeah, what's your objection?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, what's your objection to that?
My it's rather fuckwit pedestrian. Oh, sorry. Am I allowed to swear or no?
No, not anymore.
What's he gonna use to cut it? A chainsaw?
That's the point. He recognizes the ludicrousy of that statement, but that's the only thing he can come up with to define it, or how we would prove it empirically.
You've gone soft, Adam. There's you're making a lot of apologetics here.
I'm not.
Yes, he is.
I'm obviously hearing a different thing to you. Now, and that's why I prefaced it. This is not a debate. This is about just softening someone up. And I hear somebody being softened up to the point that they're accepting these things. They recognize the limitations of themselves that previously maybe they didn't.
Adam's a flat earth evangelist at heart.
I was very interested in this conversation. I found it very interesting that you could talk to a Mensa guy like this and have such little obstruction.
Yeah, well, the Mensa guy said he was on the fence.
That guy was a moron, dude.
Well, the Mensa guy just said he was on the fence. He was assessing the options, which to me says he's already looking at it and questioning the reality. And you're saying, well, the guy affirmed that, but I think he wouldn't be there if it wasn't the case anyway. So I don't know.
I think we've had a little chat before.
Isn't that a massive indictment against people like the Rumpus and all that? You've actually gotten a concession, or it is a concession that he's considering it, whereas people like the Rumpus and his friends, they're just completely, you know what their approach is. They won't even consider it at all. They think it's utterly ridiculous. Yet you've got a guy from Mensa that's considering it. I find that refreshing.
I don't care.
I thought his answers, I'll say this again. I thought the Mensa's answers to the jacked up questions were rather pedestrian and no better than what a clumsy child could offer. That's what I thought.
And I had no interest in that. Nor was I that interested in his scrutiny. I was interested in how you open up somebody of that intellect. How can you reason with them? And how will they reason with you?
Well, they were malformed questions to begin with. Is what I'm trying to say. I thought I put that a little forward. I think he got the gist of what the question should be, the Mensa guy. But his answers, pitiful.
Yeah, it just seemed like he was
even if I was
agreeable.
new.
Just being agreeable. Yeah, I kind of see.
Yeah, notwithstanding that part of it. Yeah, I got you. But still,
that's my only concern. That it was just all platitudes. So that's why he was so agreeable, that it was all just platitudes. That's why I want to see more of him as well, and see him address the housekeeping questions.
And Mr. Screechy, it sounded like to me, overall, it took a step back. It sounded like to me that he likes to hear his own voice for some reason. Let the guy talk. Number one, the dude's mic sucked. Right? It was hard to hear his answers. He kept on mumbling and shit.
I'm just going to say, you're not allowed to make that criticism.
I found it quite pathetic. I was considering doing a treatment on it, but it's too hard to hear the Mensa guy.
Nathan has issues with your mic, you.
I've got a issue with
No, he
everybody's mic. Okay, yeah, I agree. He talked too much, gave too much information away, wasn't leading enough, and didn't let the guy talk enough. The Mensa guy was what you wanted to hear, and what you got was platitude. You got, yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from, and yeah, I would want empirical evidence, and things like that. Now, I think Adam's saying, well, yeah, but the guy's intelligent, and he's obviously contemplating this. That in and of itself is enough to raise an eyebrow, and I agree, it is. And, and you've got Anthony saying, well, you know, for the guys that are out there that are saying, no, we're hyper intelligent. Well, you're closed minded. And here's a Mensa guy. Obviously, if you take it as read that he's smarter than you are, then he's open minded enough to be considering it and discussing it. So, you know, it is interesting. It's a worthwhile, you know, discussion. And you kept saying it's not a debate. And you're right, it wasn't. It was a nice discussion about Flat Earth, which is lovely. And had the Mensa guy come here, there's a good chance that I would have turned it into a debate the moment I got him to affirm something that was easily debunked, and then we'd have got into the wrangle-dangle. Now, this guy, Mindshot guy, didn't necessarily want to do that, but to me, no offence to the Mensa guy, it matters not what you want to do when you get here. All that matters is what's your claim? What is your fundamental premise in regards to being here on a debate channel about the nature of Earth? What's your claim? Oh, right, can you back it? That's it, that's all that he'd get, and it would become contentious quickly if he had beliefs that he couldn't substantiate when I dragged out the claim from him, which you'd hope that we'd get. Now, that is harsh. It's why it's so quiet on the globe-believing side, and the only people who are coming here in the last few months to argue the toss against us are people on our own side, in quotes, you know, flat earthers, because we're taking apart... Hey, I'll just change the subject, just take a slight U-turn here. Earlier, we talked about Bev in debate with Charles, Flat Earth Math, talking about essentially parallel zeniths. Now, what intrigued me, although I didn't say on the live show because it's not live show worthy, isn't it interesting that Bev is trying to decry celestial navigation by reducing it down to an angle measurement to decry that, when in reality, what is argued with Charles Flat Earth Math is in practical application in celestial navigation. In other words, if he understood this argument, he'd have had a much easier time with Charles, by the sounds of things, because he could substantiate his claim that it's a geometric principle that he's put to Charles with a practical applied version of it on the ground. But he wants to decry that. I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, the term.
Is this something that happened recently?
In my head, Nathan. As
yeah,
well,
apparently. Sorry, Adam. Let me just answer QE. Yes, it has happened recently. He was debating this with Charles a couple of days ago. Charles did a response that I saw, recommended to me, even though I'm not subscribed, because of course, present it to everybody. It's anti-flat Earth. Anyway, enough of my moans. Yes, it is. Go ahead, Adam.
I was just saying, as Tony described it, the same words, diverging zeniths, popped in my head. You're done then, Charles.
Yeah, you can't have diverging zeniths, and you can show why when you apply it to navigation.
But
I thought
the point,
Charles...
I think that where the stalemate can come in is to have two perpendiculars. You can't verify the two together. It's always been a problem. But with celestial navigation, is that principle that the zeniths are parallel is the principle in which navigation works. If they were diverging, it wouldn't work. So it's a very, very good practical demonstration to win the argument.
Go ahead, QE. There was one other thing I wanted to add. Go ahead.
I thought that Charles, I haven't heard Charles in like a year, maybe the last time that you two guys got together. I thought he left.
Yeah, he buggered off, came back, started claiming stuff, and I said, you need R for that, we've debunked it. He couldn't get around the black swan, so he said, we don't need to assume R. So I went on his show to show him how he absolutely needs to use R, and when he got to the point that he was using R, and I was asking him for a measurement of it, which he can't give me, he started muting me on his show. But that's all been trimmed out about a year ago, as you point out, and then he disappeared again. Now he's back with a vengeance, apparently debating, it's another interesting point that Adam's just brought to my attention, coming to a neutral outcome with Bev? That seems very suspicious. Well, we're being called out for being, quote, suspicious because we've done things with angles when he's saying we can't. Meanwhile, Bev's getting to the point with a neutral outcome with Charles, presumably all very civil, because he can't validate his assertion that you've got two parallel flagpoles on a flat plane. So therefore, neutral outcome. Well, no, with celestial navigation, you could have absolutely hammered him. But yet we're being hauled over the coals for that? This all seems wrong. So just a neutral outcome then?
It's because he didn't come up with the argument. That's why.
But he's having the argument. He's talking about two flagpoles being parallel with one another if they're both plumb with the ground, level. Well, yeah, that's a principle that you can argue about, but arguing the principle doesn't prove the principle. Showing a practical application of it does. And the thing that he could have won with in this example didn't get him a win, got him a neutral outcome. I can't remember who it was that said this, but they were saying that whenever anything gets discussed or debated on BEVs, the best you can hope for, I think it was Brian, is a neutral outcome. You never get to the point where one or other side wins. Like, okay, so why is it getting supported in any way, shape or form, especially when he's having to bullshit about things and lie about what we claim and how useful angles are in this example to make sure that he gets a neutral outcome? Is that the idea here? As I say, it all seems very wrong.
I'm saying he didn't come up with the celestial navigation. That wasn't his. So he's not going to line up with it.
Not as. It's not as either. It's not an argument. Oh, that annoys me. Okay, I'm not annoyed at you, Neil, for disseminating that, but that frustrates me. The practical application of celestial navigation isn't our argument. It just is. It just is celestial navigation. Now, we can utilise the principle that's applied in celestial navigation to make our point about the Earth needing to be flat. But the celestial navigation itself isn't our argument. It's like saying cars. Well, are you going to claim ownership over cars? It's like, no. It's not an argument. They're just cars. It's just celestial navigation. It just is what it is. It's not our argument.
That's what makes it more ridiculous. Yes, I understand.
Here you go. That's the way to phrase it. Often when people start saying, no, you don't need to measure a flat baseline to give you an elevation angle. For example, my response, your argument is with celestial navigation then. Because that's not something I'm making as a claim. That is how it's done. So your argument isn't with me, it's with celestial navigation. Alrighty, glad we got that cleared up. Nobody going to raise an eyebrow about neutral outcomes at BEVs? Clearly not.
Nobody going to raise an eyebrow about neutral what, did you say?
It's because Brian's not here. Brian's point a couple of weeks ago was that whenever he watches Bev, nobody ever wins.
Yeah, because it's just all a waste of time. I mean, I don't know enough about his channel because I caught on very early. He is just wasting your time. I mean, you're going to be really bored to watch Bev. I mean it.
On the contrary, they come here and defend him with
always
passion.
doing the same time-wasting shit.
Sorry, Arwen.
I was just saying, he's always doing the same time-wasting shit. You go.
I don't think he is time wasting. My only problem with like listening to Bev is that when he says that he doesn't get involved in any of the drama, but he loves to stir the pot with the honey spoon, doesn't he? Right? I've listened to him saying on the one hand he doesn't want to get involved in drama, and then criticizing the Nathan Oakley show because Nathan Oakley takes things personal. I'm not exactly sure what he's referring to, but obviously Nathan's took something personal according to Bev that Nathan probably didn't take personal. Maybe he did. I don't know. But it's
Oh,
just the
wait a second.
contradictory nature of claiming victim whilst throwing stones. That bugs
Just
me really bad.
projecting. Just
The
projecting.
same guy that came in here crying that we called him some sort of names was Nathan's taking things personal? Holy shit.
Dude, it's all projection. He's using the Clinton method. He's a sapper. He knows what he's doing. He's a manipulator. He likes it. He's very comfortable doing that.
Right. Once I figured it out, listening back to a few of the shows when we were critiquing him listening to his actual show back, and I couldn't put my finger on what he was doing. He's gaslighting. So, you're doing something with an angle? Oh, well, that's very suspicious. Yeah, gaslighting. His argument is you can't do anything with an angle. The moment anybody does anything with an angle, he tells you that it's suspicious. Yeah, gaslighting you. Maybe I should explain what gaslighting is. There's a movie called Gaslight where the husband tries to make the wife think that she's nuts by basically meddling with the lights. So she goes down, turns all the lights off, goes to bed. When she gets up in the morning, they're all on. So she turns them all off because it's daytime. He says bye to her, kisses her goodbye, sneaks back into the house without her knowing. He turns all the lamps back on. When she goes, I don't know what's going on, he's like, you're going mad. You're just going nuts. No, he's manipulating her environment to make her think she's going nuts. So when you're listening to You Can Do Nothing with an Angle, and someone comes along and goes, right, I'm now going to do something with an angle, and Bev goes, whoa, that's very suspicious. That's gaslighting.
When he talks about that point, the way I hear, when he says what he says, what I hear him saying is, if we take a cake analogy, right, and you go with flour, flour's a constituent component of a cake, isn't it? Right? You need eggs, you need flour, you need a bit of milk, a bit of this, bit of vanilla essence, all the bits that make up a cake, right? On its own, when he says you can do fuck all with an angle, that's like saying you can do fuck all with flour. But you can actually do stuff with flour. You can mix it with eggs and you can do milk and make a cake out of it. And I don't really understand what he's saying, because you can use an angle to form a function that then gives you information that you can disseminate about the world around you. But I don't get why he says that you can do fuck all with an angle when it's obvious that you can.
We've now officially run out of F. Can you see F all?
Can someone explain it to me?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. New YouTube rules that have come into effect recently. So now we only get 5 fucks, 3 buggers, 2 craps, 17 shits. That's all we can have. So you've used them all.
We can't hear you.
Can someone explain to me what he means?
We can't hear you because Anthony's mic is echoing everything you said.
Yeah,
Can
he
you
doesn't
do that
use
one
the
more
mute
time.
button. Yeah, just try not to swear. That's it.
Okay. I'll summarize it. You're dealing with a retard. End of statement.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But passionate people follow that retard, as you put it, and they are prepared to defend his doublespeak and gaslighting. It's amazing. Hearing someone like SC Montreal, just incredible.
Maybe somebody could contextualize it with the cake analogy, because I don't really understand what he means when he said you can do nothing with an angle, because you can do something with flour. Is he saying that you can't make a cake with flour when he references the angle? You can't use an angle to do stuff with.
Let me take you through it. Hold on. Let me take you through it. Okay. Yeah. I'm just going to put flour on your desk. Yeah? How are you going to make a cake? You fuck all with flour.
Yeah, so I've got an egg here, a bit of milk.
Oh, whoa. So you've got to have an egg as well?
Yeah, but I'm using
whoa. So you can do nothing with the flour then?
No, I can bake a cake.
No, you just said you needed an egg as well. You were going to do something with the flour that involved an egg, didn't you?
So if I flip it around the other way and I've got an egg, I've got some sugar, and I've got some
sugar as well now. My God!
No
see, very suspicious. See, this is all. See, he's talking through me now. He's scared. This is all magic. All magic. He's putting sugar in. He's got all sorts of stuff going on now. I say you can do nothing with flour. Before you know it, we've got sugar. We've got eggs. That's what he's doing, Anthony.
Yeah, but let me just ask.
Perfect analogy.
Just one sec. Let me ask. Because like if I say, okay, I'm going to make a cake, right? And here's my eggs, here's my vanilla essence, and here's my sugar, but I've got no flour. Can I make a cake? And the answer, of course, is no, because you need the flour to make the cake, right? So that's flipping it the other way around, saying, well, what can you not do with the angle? Like you can't do trig. And like if you haven't got that angle, how can you then do trig? But you need the angle to do the trig, so you can do something with an angle, right?
Not just the angle. You're saying you're going to apply trig to the angle. Oh, that's very suspicious. So if you just had the angle, you couldn't do anything with it. Because you can do nothing with an angle, Anthony. Do you see how benign and stupid this is?
I'm just trying to understand what he's... I don't understand his argument. I'm just
try it again. I'll just try and explain it again. I'll just try and explain it again. It's called gaslighting.
Gaslighting himself?
His audience and his members.
And Anthony's taking him too serious. You're taking it too serious.
No, you missed it. As usual. Number one, he doesn't have an argument on any level, especially this one. It's a straw man because no one on this channel would ever say something as stupid as, we're only using an angle. So he conjured that, right, to make some type of argument that he didn't have. It's a straw man. I don't know who he's saying it against. It's dumbass right from the start. Follow? You can't be saying it against Nathan.
He was saying it to me.
Ken.
Well, contextually, he was saying it to me. I'm explaining to him what we do with angles when we measure them to do celestial navigation, and his response to me, after explaining it, was you can do F all with an angle. So, essentially, diminishing my points that I made to his server by telling me that I'm wrong because you can't do anything with an angle, after explaining what you do with an angle. Again, gaslighting the people around him that I'm not making any sense after describing what you'll do with an angle by saying you can't do anything with an angle. That's simple gaslighting.
I think it's simple retard.
He knows what you can do with an angle, which tells me that he's not stupid enough to not appreciate what you can do with an angle when he categorically decries doing anything with an angle, because I'm describing doing things with angles.
Well, yeah, that's after the fact. Right? Now you're chasing, you and Anthony are in cahoots. You're chasing the idiot retard statements down the path of retardedness.
I've got to admit, when I do analyse this after the fact, I do say, this is so stupid that we would need, why would we get into the wrangle-dangle of telling somebody what you can do with an angle by giving a billion examples of people doing things with angles and having tools that are angles for doing things with, a set square. You could go on forever. Why? Well, because it's so incredibly stupid. So you're saying, well, if you haven't recognised that the reason you're constantly affirming things you can do with angles to this idiot is because he's an idiot.
I'll tell you what you can do with an angle. You've got two pieces of wood that you want to fit into the corner of your room, and it looks like it might be 90, but you know that if you cut it bang on 90, it's not going to fit because walls are never dead straight. There's always a bit of give. So what would you do? You'd measure the angle and you'd say it's actually 86. And if you'd have cut it at 90, you wouldn't have fitted it in. If you'd have cut it at 85, it'd have a bit of a tapered edge to it. So you measure the angle at 86. And then based on that measured angle, you then cut it accordingly. And what do you know? It fits. Is that not a direct application of what he says that you can't do with an angle?
Yes.
No. You had two wood planks and the corner of a wall.
And
no, without the angle,
and you were,
Can I get a word in?
Anthony, you were actually doing something right. You were doing something in practical application. Therefore, no matter what you say, because what you've described is doing something with an angle, I will say it's suspicious, magic, utilizing something other than the angle itself. Those are the three main prongs of attack that Bev will employ after you describing the obvious application of angles, which is just so self-explanatory and considered to be known by everybody that you'd have to be gaslighting somebody in order to believe that that wasn't the case, or feel like he's gaslighting us at the moment. We have to justify the use of an angle, which is where QE comes in and going, no, guys, you're overanalyzing this. Just accept it.
And Bev is being Dadaistic about it. He's just like throwing everything overboard, just like that. That's his style.
There's got to be a
He's a solipsist.
Here we go.
He's
Chill time.
He's on
There's
purpose
gotta be-
like that.
Got to be what? Got
There's
to be
got
what?
to be a
Chill.
context to this background because, like, it can't be as simple as what he says. There must have been Rumpus at some point. Must have said something, and that's what he's referencing.
No,
because
no, this is all him.
Yes,
this is
there
what
is.
he likes to do.
Yes, there is. I just explained it like 3 minutes ago. I'm telling his server what we can do with an angle, because that's literally what celestial navigation is. It's the description of what you're going to do with a measured angle when you're out lost. So I'm describing to them, this is how the argument works. Brian's done it too, right? And in order to decry the argument that's been disseminated to his panel or his server, he's turned around and completely undermined everything I've said by boldly declaring that you can't do anything with an angle after his server hearing precisely what I, not him, have described when you do things with angles. That's why he's done it. Now, when I said this last time, Brian was like, no, he did it with some of the baller. I'm like, okay, that may be. But a very long time ago, when this was a relatively new argument to me, but I could disseminate it, I disseminated it to Bev's panel in the vain hope that they would utilize this exceptionally good applied methodology to their argumentation. All they had to do was understand the methodology, not my argument, just understand the methodology of using angles, doing things with angles. Bev goes, alarm bells. Someone else that might take away my control over these minions that believe every word I say and follow everything I do. This person might get followed by them, so I've got to decry every word he says. And he did. To the point where I'm saying you'd have people die at sea then, to try and make the point to his panel. That's where that came from, when we telling you guys about Bev would have everyone die at sea. Yeah, because that's the point I had to take it to with him, telling me that you can't do anything with an angle. There we go.
It's nuts.
Ask him again, Anthony.
Please don't.
Yeah, but that came after Brian was on, but I was on with him.
Yeah, Brian got there 2 weeks earlier. Yeah.
So let's just be clear with what's just happened there. QE's just said, ask him again, Anthony, implying that I was asking the retarded question. But I said there was obviously a context to this that I wasn't familiar with. Now I am familiar with the context, and I realise he's had to say that because he needs to double down on a previous argument with Nathan, which I didn't know before. So I don't need to ask him again, John, but thanks for the inference that I'm done.
Sure, but without that context, which he didn't publish, that's a non-issue. And he could even claim that he's making the same argument with Bev, and everyone will swallow it because there's no contextual timeline beyond my description of it happening. So it's irrelevant in many ways. The fact is that if we ignore all of that periphery that predates the actual assertion, you've just got the stupid assertion, and QE's right. It's just a stupid assertion. Now, if the people who follow him go, yeah, Nathan's wrong, doesn't he appreciate that if you've just got an angle, and I give you back all the gaslighting contextualization that I've been given from Bev, he's actually wrong? Like, good dogs, go back to your pound with Bev.
Yeah, nothing needs to be said to him and his incoherent band. I mean, just let him speak. An incoherent second grader, somebody that's graduated like second grade geometry, they're just going to roll their eyes and walk away.
Meanwhile, the minions that are supporting him, they had to come and back him up because he came with mass behind him. People backing him up. All the different minions from his server came over when he came over, right, as backup. Okay, fine. Yeah, when I came to your server, Bev, I didn't need 5 people to back me up, right?
Yeah, he came with the whole infantry.
Yeah, he came with his old panel. Anyway, the whole point of that preamble was to say that when his panel did pipe up, they didn't have great arguments to overcome us either. They could parrot off and try and defend and white knight Bev, which is the only reason they were there. But that's their only purpose. So they're not like autonomous, I think is the right word, in the respect that they could go out and start pummeling people. They're there purely to serve Bev as his white knight companions. Pathetic.
And they're not flat earthers, correct?
Minions.
So they say.
They're not flat earthers.
That's what they say.
So he gets treated like a ball-tard.
I wonder why Rakia wasn't there. He's next.
Oh, what's wrong with Dave? He buggered off ages ago. Is he fall? I didn't know he was a Bev Try Thinking minion. Oh, that what a shame. I liked Dave Rakia.
So did I. And oh, yes, he is.
So he's all in. That's a shame. Oh, well.
Maybe it's because you didn't read out his comments enough, Nathan.
That's
Right.
probably why.
Yeah, but Dave Rakia was a guy that does typically get carried away with things. I mean, like even years back, like with the IPS, right? When he went on troll waves, just look at who went along with that. Those are the same people that are now getting caught up in the more recent events.
We can't help them. I mean, in the same way we say we're not flat Earth evangelists, we can't help the lost souls that come and they need a new guru or a new whatever it is that they're finding from Bev. You can't help them. It's not our place to either, really.
It's like they're trying to find a home.
Well,
it's just an angle. It's just an angle.
Exactly. Exactly. What Bev's shtick is to undermine us. It's not of any significance for us to do the same to Bev. We can point out where his stupid statements are wrong. But beyond that, once this gets settled, reactive, bearing in mind that we are reacting to his nonsensical shite that he's having to spin to undermine us. Once that's done, once we forget, we're not going to be proactively trying to demean or undermine Bev. Right? There's no need for us to do that. That's not our shtick. But there is a requirement, it seems, for Bev to do that to us. Okay. Live and let live. Whatever. You get on. You do you. Fine. And if he turns people against us, we'll fool them. You know, if you can't see that we're not proactively going after people like Bev, it's not what we do. Same goes for Jaren. It was him a few months ago. Were we proactively going after Jaren when Witzik comes in and tells us about Ether and we take him apart on his nonsense? Suddenly Jaren's calling me a science scammer? No, that's just reacting to people not liking us taking apart their nonsense. Or in this case, not liking us disseminating an argument that proves Earth's flat when your whole shtick is to say, well, I can't prove it's flat. It isn't. Well, it's navigated flat. You can't do anything with an angle. Okay, right, you've got a motive, fine. Go away.
What was the conclusion of that Jeranism scammer thing? How did that finish?
I don't know. I lost interest after I made my point where Jaren had claimed I was a scammer and I wasn't, because I'm claiming science. Not being empirical is Jaren's argument. You show it's empirical and move on, right? I don't watch Jaren. I couldn't give a crap.
From what I've heard, nothing has changed. He hasn't apologized. He hasn't changed his stance.
I don't want him to. I'm not.
Who cares about an apology?
Yeah, I don't.
He's a retard too.
Exactly, I don't care.
I heard he put his
P-Brain's in a wrangle-dangle currently with Jaren, and he wants him to apologise for his incorrect assertions about Christianity in the Bible. Well, me, I don't want an apology from Jaren. It's an opportunity for me to disseminate what science is, because there's some numpty telling people that I'm wrong because I say science proves things, when I can demonstrate the empirical method and how it proves things. That's another useful opportunity. Do I want an apology? No. As a friend, I approached Jaren long before I actually did anything about him claiming I was a scammer, and asked him for a retraction and gave him personally, behind the scenes, all of the rebuttals that went out to the public. So, on a personal level, I was like, this is an outrage. I want an apology. Give me a retraction. This is an outrage. And he laughed in my face. So, you go, okay, fine. Well, gloves are off then. No worries. I'll show how wrong you are. But not because I want an apology.
I never said you did. I'm just making a state of fact that he hasn't shown any kind of change of course in recent days.
Fine. Let Jaren remain ignorant about what science does. No worries.
I heard he flipped his hat the other way.
Meanwhile, they came out with that video calling you a scammer with the MC Hammer song, and nobody dealt with it.
Dealt with it? What do you want me to do other than disseminate what science is to prove him wrong?
Kick his ass!
Kick his ass? I've got no interest in kicking Jaren's ass either. He's saying I'm a scammer because I disseminate what science is and what science does accurately. Well, if that makes me a scammer in Jaren's eyes, then I'm going to address it reactively and point out why I'm not scamming when I say science proves things because it has an empirical method that can only have a validated outcome at the end of the process. That's just all I can do.
You know, if you go back to like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and listen to the Jaren back then to the Jaren right now, Jaren's backslid. He hasn't gone forward in the arguments. He's gone back. It's astonishing to listen to how he talks now. It's just so disappointing to see how he's basically slid off the hill and he's gripping on by his fingertips because it isn't the same guy anymore.
Yeah, I agree. Well, at the moment that started, I unsubscribed and moved on with life. That's how it goes, right?
That's what happens when you hang out with a guy named Xanadu.
I mean, Bob's got his own issues. Again, I'm not a subscriber. Don't follow. Don't care. Occasionally, I have to react to things that they say because they don't like the fact that we take apart their positive assertions about invalidated claims of ether.
We can only hope some of their minions grab a hold, whether it be Jared, Bob, excuse me, Bob the Numpty. We can only hope, or Bev, idiot, we can only hope people grab their train wreck arguments and mindless, bagack them back to us. I've been waiting for that. The minions to come in with their arguments. That doesn't happen. You know why? They don't have any coherent arguments. That's why.
Right. We only get we get the upper
ahead.
tiers of priesthood come. So we get their third, fourth in command, or whatever you would call Witsit. And we get that to deal with. That's it. Where's the hordes of people telling us that ether's real because they've subscribed and given Jaren money for his Rockfin to tell us all about it and how wrong we were about it? Where are all they? Have they not been disseminated all that information for their $5?
Like I said, one can only hope. But no one's coming around. I don't hear those arguments. That when you just mentioned ether, that's the first time I've heard ether in months.
It's because the priests of ether aren't making a load of racket about us, telling people that we're scammers rather than proving ether.
Is that not a consequence of the YouTube algorithm, though? Because they're pretty good at dividing us, even though, I mean, think about it. How many content creators can you think of other than, I don't know, Nathan and Bob or whoever? Like, where's all the cross-pollination between platforms on the same topic? Because there isn't really very much of it, and they keep it divided. Perhaps it's the case that we're not aware of all these ether guys because they're being divided in such a way by the algorithm that makes it very difficult for the cross-pollination to work, for us to even hear the argument anymore.
So what you're saying is, if we're detractors even of the anti-flat earth rhetoric versus the flat earth rhetoric that we don't agree with, it won't be put in front of us because that dissension would make things worse if they wanted to divide us? That doesn't make any sense, Anthony.
No, what I mean is because it seems that YouTube applies the divide and conquer rule. They divide everybody up so that they're all compartmentalized. And then they ascribe like troll group 6 to attack Nathan and troll group 7 to attack Brian or whatever. But the effect of it is that when flat earthers, and I use the term loosely, present an argument, we rarely get to hear about it because we're all compartmentalized. But we should all know about each other's arguments, but it's not coming through at the moment.
Well, they're conspiratorial nonsense. I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
first bit.
yeah, that's the same thing I was thinking. What?
I'm addressing where are all the etherists? Why don't we hear from them anymore? Has it died, or is it just that we're not getting to their audience?
That was
and their
Kiwi's
audience are not
point.
getting to
Did
us?
you not listen to what Kiwi he said? Because they haven't disseminated fantastic arguments, that we aren't seeing a broad swathe of their believers who've paid the $5 to Rockfin coming and saying, you guys, you ether detractors, didn't you realise that blah, 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 as I learned on Rockfin from Jaren? Are they doing that? No. Would they be doing that if they had really cracking information and we're being painted as scammers? If you were the guy watching it on Rockfin and you were so inclined, and there must be some of them, right, or would have no YouTube, you'd come to us and go, idiots, let me disseminate the information I learnt for my $5 that I got scammed out of. We're not having that come. Nobody's coming to do that because there isn't any good information coming about ether. We've debunked it all. That's the only reason they've got to tell their audience we're scammers. That's what we do get. There aren't any, Anthony. Who's making the material? The priests. They've come here. Whitsit's one of them, and we've taken apart his crap. Who else is going to come after that?
Maybe it's not down to the algorithm. Maybe it's down to the content that they're making is just lacking in substance, and that's why it doesn't get anybody realistic to follow it.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe there's a few small-timey YouTubers that are making content about Ether and just nobody gives a crap because it sounds so stupid. Right, that's what I'm going to round out then. With that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!